Good evening, this is the Douglas Conservation Commission. We're opening our meeting at 7:02 PM. We will open this meeting with a roll call vote. I'm KG Dudley and I am chairing as vice chair.
Here she is.
Oh,
Eric, why didn't you say over here?
Tracy, would you like to mention that you were here for the attendance?
I'm here for the
Thank you.
attendance. That's good. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Eric Harriside,
Art
I'm here.
Muffins here.
Mike Rocco.
Mark Munjam's here.
Awesome, thank you. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to stay in the other meeting.
Nope.
Okay. We have mail.
Okay. Do we have mail?
We have
You
mail, but then I assumed it would be covered under the other discussion items.
There's one item on the mail that there's a voucher for Eric to attend the MACC conference.
Yep, I have it right here.
It's not a voucher, it's just a statement, so if the commission get permission, I'll have the voucher drawn up for the next meeting.
Okay. And would anyone else like to attend the MACC? May 21st. Maybe, are you looking for a formal motion?
I think if a consensus is okay, then
Okay. Yeah, consensus,
you have to sign the voucher eventually.
okay. All right, so consensus? Good to use the funds? And if everyone would want to look at the MACC classes that are on the website, if anybody else is interested? No? Okay.
Thank you. I'm delighted for Eric to go, though.
I am too.
me too.
I'm glad that somebody would like to
We
go.
have a consensus.
Okay, the 2 orders to be signed. So do we have attorney on the line? Town councilor, you're here with us tonight?
I am present, Madam Chair. Brian Winter from Town and Costa.
Okay, so we are going to address number 3, Shore Road, email from Sally Bentley and Janine Lawrence, discussion of flooding and environmental concerns, and as well as a Shore Road letter from Madeline Myers. So, where would you like to start? You're aware of the issue, the ongoing issue with the pipe and the flooding on Shore Road. And I think this board has tried to work through, I wasn't in attendance for the first couple of discussions, but we've tried to work through the best we can. So I think we're just looking for direction and maybe for the abutters to kind of understand whose jurisdiction this is, who has the powers, what can be done, where we're heading to remedy the issues.
Sure, and I'm happy to provide a little bit of my perspective based on what I have seen thus far. And just so you know, I've received some information from your agent, from Steve Zisk, also from Matt on the planning side. So we have seen a little bit of the background on this, and obviously we've had some conversations with folks along the way. And there seems to be, kind of 2 fundamental issues here. One is that, and this is probably the chief issue, is that, the way the property, the abutter's property, it's all private land. So a lot of these issues, as they've been explained to us and described to us, concern activities on private property undertaken by private parties. So whatever's right or wrong about them, they didn't occur on our land or at our request or by any party under our care, custody, and control. So the reason I say that's very fundamental is because we don't have much power over what happens on private property and activities conducted by private parties. So that's category 1. So to the extent that there are a lot of concerns, and by the way, this is no comment on the merits of any of those concerns. I'm just putting the information in the containers right now. I have absolutely no comment on, what's good or what's bad or what's working or not working out there, just whether or not it's in our jurisdiction or not. And so to the extent all those fall on private parties, it's not. So the second thing I wanted to mention is that I do see that there's an open order of conditions, and I understand that there's some ongoing, monitoring, some activity with respect to our role whenever there's a permit that's, open, that remains open. And so I understand that your agent is continuing to look after that, as it is our job to, until there's sort of a point at which it can be closed out, whenever that happens in the process. But that's par for the course, if you will, in terms of issuing a permit, following up on it, monitoring it for compliance, and making course corrections along the way to the extent that there are any deviations or any issues in the field. So that's something that your agent handles as the project progresses. So that's nothing unique or different about this project. That's just par for the course. So that's really the only role the Conservation Commission plays in this right now, is through your agent to determine whether or not things are progressing in accordance with the permit or not. And then if not, we address them in due course as we would with any other outstanding permit. So that's sort of the nutshell synopsis. I also understood for tonight, certainly at the chair's discretion, you might hear some more about, or do some more fact-finding, if you will, but it sounds like perhaps you've already had a little bit of that at previous meetings. So I'm happy to hear more about this from your perspective and field any questions you might have. I'm sure there's more to the story that I don't know. So happy to hear any comments, questions, or concerns.
Thank you very much. So if someone would like to be heard briefly on this discussion item, they can put their hand raised and I will address you, and you would have to say your name and address for the record. Mrs. Lawrence?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Jean Lawrence at 119 Shore Road. And thanks again for your attention to this. I appreciate the Concom has given some voice to this issue a few times. And I appreciate Mr. Woodard coming here, and I really like to go right at the point about it's a private road and the town hasn't been involved, because the town issued building permits that caused flooding in our road. We went to the town zoning board in one instance and said we're concerned this could flood our properties. And we got shut down, and now they say it's a private road. These issues were anticipated, raised in concerns by due process, by concerned citizens. 3 different neighbors went there, and now we have the damage happening, and there is a mechanism for this town to mitigate it now, but they're not doing that. There were stipulations on the building permit that are not being enforced, and that has to do with the culvert, the broken culvert. The other part of it is that the solar farm was given a permit by the town, and I appreciate that they're having a peer review, but this was a decision by the town. And it's hard for citizens to believe that the town would have, I'm sure you wouldn't want to make decisions that cause flooding on properties and then say it's a private road and it's outside your jurisdiction. So, you may not be able to address all that today, but I think that issue is at the heart of this and needs to be elevated to sort of more public consciousness.
Thank you. Attorney Winter, do you want to address her concern about the building permits, the ZBA approval that had conditions in it?
Sure. I mean, to a certain extent, and I hear your concern. Certainly there's an expectation that when someone applies for a permit that it's going to be vetted through all the applicable town departments, and that when it's issued, it's going to be complied with. Now, all of those things could happen, and there could still be issues. So once a permit is closed out on our end, it only gets closed out if someone's made a determination that they've fulfilled the conditions. If they haven't, there's potentially some remediation or some course correction there, some enforcement that could happen until they comply. But once it's closed out, the burden falls back on the property owner, and so that doesn't mean they're off the hook. A property owner, and I'm not trying to give legal advice to an open meeting here, but property owners remain responsible for what effects their property has on neighbors. And so while the town's role in the permitting process ends at a certain point, the property owner's responsibility doesn't necessarily end at the same time. It continues on. So a lot of these concerns that you just raised, they might be 100% valid concerns, but they're things that you would need to speak with your counsel if you chose to speak with an attorney about it, because you have private rights. So if this is a private road, it's not a town road. The town has very limited abilities when it comes to doing work on private property. And in a nutshell, we can't. So really, the kind of redress that you want to seek is towards the people that own property along the road. It might be, I don't have an opinion on it, but might be the owner of property that's the source of some of these issues. And maybe that's one person, or maybe it's a group of people. But that's the next place to look. And that requires, some professional support. But that's not something that becomes a quote-unquote town hall issue.
Could I just have a follow-up question? So when the zoning board issued the special permit, there were conditions that needed to be met, and there is no occupancy permit yet. So where do we go with enforcement of those conditions in that ZBA decision from the town?
Right, and I might be splitting hairs a little bit here, but there's a difference between what happens on the ground and a violation of a condition. So you have to approach your building official and make a request to have whatever alleged, non-compliance issue you have examined. So there's a process. So you have to make a complaint about what the violation is as you see it. Then the building official reviews the permit. So they're the enforcement arm of the zoning board. And then that person will make a determination. Is it in compliance? Is it not in compliance? And what are we going to do about it? So if it's in compliance, then that's the end right there, because we can only insist on compliance. Now, I don't know, and I can't give you an opinion on whether or not things are out of compliance or in compliance, but that's the process, and that's the person that would have to make that determination.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mrs. Lawrence, did you want to have a follow-up question, or are you good?
Well, if it's possible, I might ask Mr. Winter some questions and not take up the whole time, but whether or not it's in compliance is an important point. And so I didn't want to keep putting pressure on the Concom when some of this is out of their purview, perhaps. But it is relevant to the Concom because things that have happened have also flooded the lake with debris and water running through my house under my basement near my oil tank and septic system and everything affects Wallem Lake too. So anyway, but I do have some other questions and points, but I realize I don't want to take up too much time for this committee right now, and if I could get information on how to proceed through the town process to make things happen, that would be very good. And I also just want to say that it isn't just me that's concerned, although I think Madeline and I had the most impact. good for residents to understand, you know, that things are fair and rules are followed. And we want to have good relations with all our neighbors in the end, and that's all we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Winter, did you want to respond with anything? I also have one more last question for you.
No, I don't want to, I don't have anything to follow up on that one, but
Okay.
please, what's your question?
So this board issued an emergency order to repair the pipe. The pipe was, I don't believe the design was approved by the board or by anyone.
We didn't receive a plan, which, when my understanding, when I issued the emergency order and I signed on it, the emergency order would allow them to start work without specifying the design. We did discuss the size of the pipe a lot before and after the installation. But my expectation is that I would eventually have gotten a plan, and we have not received that.
So there is an emergency order that was issued, and I believe this board determined that there would be a notice of intent filed
Yes.
for an after-the-fact filing.
Yep.
Sure. Well, that's an adjunct of an emergency order, right?
Yes. So where do we go from here? Because you were mentioning, you know, open permits, active order of conditions. That's still hanging, and we need, I think, some direction on what we can do, what our enforcement allows us to do, and who's responsible.
So, two-part question, and I'm sorry I'm being a lawyer here.
That's fine. I like it.
Good question,
We
right?
like it. We like it.
Sorry. When was the emergency order issued? And the second part is, are they refusing to file a plan, or have they just not yet filed an NOI and a plan?
The emergency order was issued on July
Oh, okay, that's all I need.
5. Okay, I was gonna give you a date, but
No, the date's not gonna matter. It was July.
it was July. It was early July. The storm that occurred that drove all this was 4th of July weekend.
So the regs have a procedure, 310 CMR has a procedure for what happens if you issue an emergency order allowing certain work to proceed. And it contemplates that there's going to be a filing as soon as time allows for it. The time has allowed for it. There's been plenty of time to make a filing. So you got two options, really. You can remind them, and this would probably be the courteous thing to do, that it is imperative that they put a filing in front of you so that you can actually review whatever design is being constructed there and decide if you want to issue an order of conditions or not, and how you want to handle it. But something needs to get in front of you. And if they're refusing or neglecting, or if the letter doesn't get their attention, you can revoke the emergency order and should, and issue a stop work order. Now, that's not necessarily going to help things in the field, but you need to get them in front of you. So if you revoke the emergency order, issue a stop work order, that should be pursuant to an enforcement order.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I would suggest that you start by reminding them of their obligations and the consequences for not coming before you first.
Okay.
If that doesn't work, proceed to stage 2.
Okay. Okay. All right, board, do we have any other questions?
Well, I feel we have asked for,
We have, but we haven't done it with, say, an official letter or something of that nature. We've asked in this forum. Agreed.
several times.
Okay. Madeline, did you wanna, Ms. Myers?
Yes, please. I'd like to speak for just a moment.
Okay, name and address.
Okay, Madeline Myers, 117 Shore Road. I'm the neighbor of the house where the culvert and the pipe, you know, the problem.
Okay.
Okay, I sent a letter just a few hours ago. I don't know if you've got it, if you've received it, but I want to thank you for listening to my concern. I'm just going to read the letter. It's awfully short, and then, whatever you do.
Okay.
Okay, so the concept of water management and containment on Shore Road does not exist. I'm talking about water containment. The town gave permits without specific details to historic water flow and how to manage the future. As water continues to pool on the southeast side of Shore Road, my yard and driveway are eroding again. Water now flows underneath the existing road into my yard, under my house, and is causing the foundation to shift. I must insist that water be allowed to flow in this historical path, which was never in my yard. When that permit to build that house was given, there were a lot of site work being done. Everyone knew across the street from that house was a wetland. Water flowed through a 12-inch pipe onto the 115 property. This was replaced not to spec, but with an 8-inch pipe, and water is being diverted to my land. Add that to the runoff from the deforested solar farm, and my house is likely to be swept away through no fault of my own, and all due to your permitting processes which take the environment or abutters into consideration. Wetland management must be enforced in this delicate balance. The planners who did this are responsible. You continue to develop Shore Road, but take no account of existing conditions and have in fact made conditions worse. Bob Miller has continued to raise up the road. The water does not breach the culvert anymore. However, it doesn't because it follows the path. Now on Shore Road, which I was told is now the historical path, which it never was. So I'm just letting you know that this kind of development, again, there was site work done 2 weeks ago, wetlands marked off again, and then wetland boundaries exposed. And also where supposedly dry boundary is available. Is that going to be another development? So please consider that we are abutters, and through no fault of our own, these existing properties were here way before solar, way before 115 put in their big house, and were not affected by any of these issues. So please consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And one more, Mr. Bentley?
Good evening, Greg Bentley, 119 Shore Road. I just wanted to add to what Gene said that, and I apologize, I did get in a little late into the meeting, but I just want to point out, I am, for Mr. Winter's information, I am a professional engineer, and the cross culvert at 115 is not in compliance, neither under the road nor have these proceedings apparently proven through many people speaking through the property itself. So I just want to let you know that there is definitely less flow going into it. It's causing a problem, and I point out, and thank you all for your patience with us, but I will point out to the COMCON that there's also a fairly significant modification of the existing wetland situation out there on the other side of the road that's resulting from this. We're now probably creating wetlands, which is not our property, but someone else might care. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have a plan for the future. This is going in front of Planning Board also. Was there one more person? Mrs. Lawrence, do you have a follow-up?
I already spoke. I just wanted to say to Mr. Winter that I hope that the town will feel responsible for enforcing their own permits, and that there should be great attention to that around this situation, because I can't imagine they're not responsible for that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy,
Yes.
question.
Yes?
I'm wondering if legal counsel will help the commission in drafting the enforcement order. If you give them some of the historical data with the emergency order on making sure that we do everything proper on submitting it to the proper owners for the pipe.
Yeah, I think,
And any activity that might be going on Shore Road that is under our jurisdiction.
yeah, I think we're gonna start with the letter first. Are you requesting town council to draft the letter reminding the recipient of the emergency order for their obligations for a plan and a filing in accordance with the rules and regulations?
It might be prudent just to make sure that we don't do something that inadvertently delays the action
Okay.
by drafting it improperly, so.
Would that be a possibility?
We can help with all of the above.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that, we all do. I think anything to move things along and be on the straight and narrow as far as the regs, that would be helpful, so we appreciate that. You could just send that over to Steve.
Yep. And see if we can talk tomorrow, if you have some availability.
Sounds great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great night.
Sorry, it's Lawrence Cook today
Oh.
on the phone. I'm with ASD Solar. I've just got a couple of things to add, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't see your hand raised, that's why I was moving on. And you're on the phone?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm on the phone, dialed in from Zoom, so
Okay.
it didn't bring up the app, so I wasn't able to do it. So
Okay.
I had to mute myself and throw myself on the mercy of you. So,
Okay, name and address, please.
So in terms of the culvert, what I will say is there's probably some misunderstanding between the two property owners, because you've got Flip Van Reed on one side where the culvert's located, the catch is located, and then you have the Millers on the other side that did the pipe repair. So I'm not sure if the situation there is that the Millers were expecting the Van Reed to submit the plan, the Van Reed was expecting the Millers to submit the plan, but that's likely what happened rather than anything more than that. But they, as far as they were concerned, they probably feel that they've repaired it and have moved on. And in terms of the solar farm impact, one of the things that it's obviously going through peer review at the moment, but that peer review is pretty much completed. There are a couple of recalculations that are being done and maybe some amendments to the outflow structures, but nothing significant. But one of the issues is obviously the basins are designed with level spreaders to spread the water out when they leak. We've also got the silt fences there to prevent any sediment being moved down into the wetlands. So what we have is a design of the basins to spread the water out, and then they are then reconcentrated to the low points in that fence. We hadn't previously asked to remove the fence because we had we're waiting for the vegetation to grow. We didn't want any sediment or turbid water to move down. But with the spring weather, it may be the case in the next month or so that we, in order to improve the situation down there, we might look at either removing sections or something along those sorts of lines.
Yeah, sorry.
To actually allow the pond to work as designed.
Mr. Cook, my apologies. We don't want to get too in-depth on what's happening there. We're going to send a letter to the person that we issued the emergency certificate or the emergency order to. And we're going to move forward. We need something in writing and a plan. And yes, we are aware of the peer review with the planning board. And I'm sure the abutters will be attending that meeting as well. So I just don't want to get into it. I think we have, we've discussed our steps moving forward, but I appreciate you kind of walking us through what activities have happened. But if you can put them in a plan, and, that would be better than.
I just wanted to plant the idea that at some point in the next month or so, it might be back in front of the Concom to say we've removed the fence at that point, so
Perfect.
it's allowed to spread, and rather than the concentration that it is at the moment. So,
Okay, all right, yeah.
I'll be quiet, and so David, I got your message, Jeannie. I will respond.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on with our agenda. It's a pretty big agenda, but I appreciate everyone that came, and Attorney Winter, thank you so much. If you could coordinate with Steve, that would be great.
Understood, will do. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to do certificates now?
We can do them whenever.
We've got, okay, so we've got request for a certificate of compliance, 48 Glen Street, Douglas Properties LLC. I see Margaret's here. We have a request. The as-built plan has been submitted, and do you want to just tell us the little
Sure.
deficiencies?
Do you want me to bring
Sure.
that up? Or
Yeah, yeah.
or just put it on the chair? I don't know what's easiest. for
Maybe
you.
the chair would be fine.
All right, so basically, this is for 48 Glen Street. This is a common driveway project that was permitted years ago. So my client right now is looking for a partial certificate of compliance. So this common drive, which goes with a wetland crossing, perennial stream right off of Glen Street. This was constructed back in about 2005. And this was this was back right when the stream crossing standards came into play. So there weren't too many three-sided box culverts back then. So we actually built, you'd really pretty much call it a bridge. We have concrete abutments and then a concrete slab that goes over the abutment. So it's not really a culvert, it's more considered a bridge. But I don't know if Steve has any pictures of what it looks like now. Actually, it came out quite nice. Actually, it came out probably one of the better ones I've ever seen. And this was done way back in the beginning of those standards, where the stream bank wasn't really disturbed at all. So what I have here is as-built of the culvert. Since it's been a while, we had the structural engineer out there last week per the building inspector's request to make sure structurally the structure's still okay, because it hasn't been used in 10, 15 years. So actually.
So, can everyone see it?
Yes.
The big issue is that, it's not paved, there's some work that, the original order has not been completed, it hasn't been really, the place hasn't been worked on in probably 10, 15 years. And there's trees growing out of the crossing.
So I guess what is the purpose of requesting a partial? The bond reduction?
Well, actually, my client has a potential opportunity to sell the parcel, to develop it. And so the big part of this crossing was the structure. So we'd like to get that signed off. Here's the replication area. I highlighted in red the area that I think has got the vegetation, but the entire thing needs some additional work. So that's not quite ready to be signed off on, and we don't really want to pave the driveway until they construct the houses up above. Okay, so the buyer will take on those responsibilities, but for right now, it's really to just get the partial certificate for the bridge structure. And location-wise and invert-wise, it's pretty much dead nuts.
So again, what would be the purpose of a partial? A bond reduction? Because if it's not, the crossing and the replication go hand in hand, so I just don't know where that would get you. You're not getting a clear title, you're not...
No, but it makes it a little more saleable, because my client, or the buyer, doesn't have to worry about that culvert. It's going to be reviewed by the building inspector, where we're getting a letter from the structural engineer to say that the structure's still, intact. There's no problems with it, and so in the rest, like I say, it's just the replication area and the paving for the new owner to take on those responsibilities.
Right, so is the paving a portion of the crossing?
Yes.
Right, so it's not done yet, though, so...
Well,
okay.
I guess that's...
You know what I'm saying?
Right, but he doesn't have to worry about the structure.
Right.
And the structure is the big part of this job. And one of the reasons, this project or this parcel it wasn't saleable just due to the expense of that crossing. Back then, we used to put in the concrete retaining walls, and instead of, I prefer now to do the slope, the vegetated slope. So back then, it was concrete retaining walls, and it's a bridge. So do the expense of that crossing in order to recover that. That property's kind of stayed dormant for the last 10, 15 years.
Okay, so what items were to be done in phase 1? Because I see a construction sequence, it notes phase 1, phase 2. Because there's a bioengineered slope on phase 2. Does that have to do with the crossing?
That's just the slopes up here where we didn't use retaining walls, and it's all vegetated now.
But is that tied into the crossing? Like you've made the crossing, I guess this is a whole crossing, right? So there's the bridge crossing, but there's also the wetland crossing that was done. There was a BBW crossing. So doesn't that go along with, I guess it says wetland crossing, not just stream crossing.
So
I'm just trying to walk it through.
Well,
Where's the extent of the wetland crossing?
Well, I guess a partial certificate for the culvert only, I guess.
Right, so you're looking for the stream crossing.
Correct.
So that portion, what are we holding for money for that portion of the crossing?
I don't know how much they put on for a deposit for that.
Board, any comments on this? Don't think that the crossing portion, which I'm not looking at the order and I'm not looking at the rest of the pages if there's more in phase 1. And I don't really, I mean, if the building inspector says it's good, you'll obviously, the structural engineer and the inspector, I mean, obviously it's good, but I don't see how to get to the partial with the wetland crossing. It'd be, we could say that a portion, the stream crossing portion is in compliance with the order of conditions with the plan.
Well, basically, that's kind of what they're looking for, because this is the meat of it. All right, the big expense right here was that.
Yeah,
The bridge.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, like I said, the buyer is willing to obviously take on the other responsibilities. It's just, he wants to just make sure that there's no issues. And what we can do, I am getting a letter from the structural engineer. I should have that in a week or two. If maybe we just want to table this for right now and then come back to it.
Yeah.
Let me get that letter.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, we could always do a verbal vote that the stream crossing structure is in compliance with the order in the original plan. I don't know what we would do with the partial, because a partial, you're checking and saying you're closing it out and only a portion has been completed, and then you would have to file a new order, right?
I'm not exactly sure. So
so the only way you would want to get a partial is if you wanted a bond reduction or the cash bond reduction, which I think we could vote on, and that would be maybe enough proof for the buyer to say that portion of the project has been satisfactorily completed. I just don't see, so it's kind of, we'll table this one until we get the letter.
But then, if there's a certain bond, and that bond was created in 2005 or whenever this was, that money's, it's going to cost way more to finish the work now than it.
Well, the additional work, but
17
let's
years
just say, it was $10,000 or something. We could release the $10,000 if that stream crossing portion has been completed.
but then what's left wouldn't be enough to finish
Right.
what's the remainder. So
Right.
why would we want to
Might not be
release
enough
any?
anyways. Oh, okay, I see where
Yeah,
you're coming
I'm not
from.
sure, but we can, Steve,
see how
if we
much
could
it
take a
is.
look at what we're holding for the replication and crossing.
So we definitely want to leave ourselves enough to the replication.
And what would you say percentage-wise the replication is at? 50%?
50%.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, what came in pretty good, you know, it's, but here they just, the white pines came in because they needed to grade down a little deeper.
Okay. Okay, so let's, we'll put this on for the next agenda on the 25th. April 25th. Okay, next one, you have the 56 West Street, Cliff Ann Reed. We have, Art's gonna recuse, right?
Yes,
Okay, so Art's recusing from the discussion.
There's a video for this one.
I'm at a butter, so.
Yep.
Understood.
And how do we do on this
This
one?
one's pretty easy. West Street, the purple here is the erosion control limits on the approved plan. And as you can see, the final grading, everything's within the erosion control area. House is pretty much dead nuts, septic's where it's supposed to be, so that one's pretty straightforward.
So there was some proposed grading. Where was the proposed grading versus the as-built grading? I don't see any grading on the,
Oh, you know, it gets very messy. So a lot
Okay.
of times they take off the, you know, but it's...
so we're gonna trust you that those were the proposed grades? Are the red,
Yeah, well,
are the
yeah,
red lines?
They have to, because they had to meet the Title V requirements. So it was a rate system, and they had to make breakout, and they had to meet 3-to-1 slopes, and typically on those jobs, that's where that erosion control is.
Okay. You went a little bit over on the back side?
Well, I think that little red thing here, I think
Yeah.
that's just the computer-generated topo line. For the most part, when the erosion control's in, I mean, they stay within those limits. That's probably
Yeah.
just computer-generated that. I
Okay.
should cut it off.
All right, Steve, everything look established? Doesn't look like any, uh-oh, crap.
I mean, this was done
No
back in,
erosion.
Yes, everything looked nice and clean.
Okay. All right, board, I'll entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 56 West Street.
So moved.
Motion made by Mike,
Second.
second by Eric. All those in favor?
Eric, sorry.
Mike Rocco, aye.
Mark Mongem, aye.
Katie Dudley, aye.
Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
We have that to sign.
$6,300 and, well, $6,312 for the bonding and 48 climb.
Total?
$6,312.
Total?
What?
Okay, so you're not getting anything back. But yeah, see what you want to do. We can get something in writing from the board most likely, but
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
2005 was a long time ago.
Okay, I'm missing a zero somewhere, anywhere in the number. Okay, next we have request for a certificate of compliance, 24 Shady Lane. Possible votes.
Can't put gas in the excavator for that.
Okay. We have the as-built plan, the plantings were done. Byron, did you want to walk us through it all? See, you're on?
Sure. So the work that was done was an addition put on the house. You can see on the screen right there, the right-hand side of the house is the location of the addition. And there was also some plantings done, which you can see some spruce trees on the right and also a birch there on the left-hand side of the screen. And those were plantings that were done.
Yeah, it looks 3, 6, 11 plantings.
I think it was 12 plantings, actually 12 trees and 3 shrubs, I
11,
believe.
okay.
And you can also see that in the area around the house, it's been well stabilized, it's got healthy grass growing there.
Was it?
Yeah, this was subject to a violation, right? There was some clearing done
That's correct.
along the side there. Yep, looks good. Looks all stable, Steve.
Very well done. The way that the trees are shown on the plan was very nicely laid out, and we appreciate that. Because you can see, like, there's a stump here, but there's
I
already a
think
tree there.
I
but, yeah.
think we did that.
I know. It's shown on the as-built well. We don't always get that.
Yes, okay, yes. So, board, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to issue the certificate of compliance.
Motion made by Art,
Second.
second by Mike. All those in favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Mark Moffitt, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Mongemi.
KG Dudley, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have that signed. Okay. The next one, 147 Davis Street driveway permit review. Steve, do you want to give us a, I see that the work has already been done and there is already machinery parked there. So that was signed off by the highway department?
I don't believe so, they're still waiting. So on this property, there was a notice of intent filed years ago. And I think I might have put that copy in everyone's folder, that plan, and work was never done on the site according to the notice of intent or the order of conditions. So they requested a certificate of compliance years ago and got one because they didn't start any work. In the last few months, they started going in there and clearing the lot, and then I think they stayed out of the buffer zone, which is on the plan for clearing the lot. They might have gone through the little bit of upland that they had. Subsequently, they came in to get a curb cut opening from highway, and John asked for the commission if there's any issues. So given that the nature of the old filing and that I'm unsure what the work is going to be done out there, bring it in front of the commission if they have any issues with it. This is I'll bring up the plan, the video. So that's the site there to the left. The wetlands are across the street, and you can kind of see them over here. There's a little bit of a buffer zone that comes in, and then there's a wetland to the right of the property, over here to the right.
Yeah, there you go. So are there any flags at the 100? And what is the width of the opening? I don't see any dimensions on anything. And I think that if the 100 was marked with something, which the old plan doesn't show any erosion controls because they were going to be working within there. If the 100 buffer could be marked in the field on both sides, I don't see, as long as they stay out of it, but it's just making sure that the work that's already been completed is not in it.
It looks like it is.
I don't know.
Is this the driveway that is there?
No, I don't think so,
Okay.
but I couldn't tell. Steve, if you pan back to the entrance, we can see the abutters, kind of like the abutters property.
Or to the,
See that must have been that one. Yeah, right there. Yeah, and then you got a little closer before, right where you cross the street. So I just don't know if they could pull a 100-foot line, see how it, oh, there is a flag right there. There's a pink flag. Is that the property line?
that might be the property line, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, well, it could be both, because honestly, if you look at where I'm assuming this is,
I don't think they would have, I'm not too concerned with the across the street one. That's good.
Oh, you're concerned with this one.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
And then portion of that is in the right of way, right, of Davis Street. See, from this edge of pavement to here, that's all in the right of way, in the town right of way.
To this line.
So as long as they stay outside the 100, there's no jurisdictional issue. But to know where that 100-foot is,
You would need a flag.
yeah. Steve, can we request the person to demarcate the 100-foot?
Sure.
And the 50 were relevant.
maintain the 100-foot buffer so that anyone working there knows that they can't cross.
So they have to stay out of the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah.
Okay. Or they have to
Or they
file-
have to apply,
All right.
file an RDA or an
Yeah.
NOI.
Yeah.
What was that, Mark?
Either they stay out of the 100-foot buffer, or they should have to file an RDA or an NOI.
Yep.
So before you sign off on the curb cut, you want to make sure that they flag the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah, I mean, it's already done. The work's already done.
Okay. So I'll just say they have to stay out of the 100-foot buffer?
It should be flagged in the field, the 100-foot, so that everyone knows where it is. So I'm sure there's probably a couple flags. What is this number?
That's E12, 11, 10, 9.
E12 and 11 and 10, and pull 100-foot from there. Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Sleepy Hollow lots 20 to 23, small wall installed to increase backyard. Is someone here presenting? Andy?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So, I apologize for my sketches, but the builder has asked as an option, two people have requested, as they're looking at houses, to increase the backyard. Steve and I met on this topic, I'm not sure, maybe last fall, and the builder didn't pursue anything. At that time, Steve had recommended that we visit the commission. So, for example, if the homeowner asked, and there's probably, today, I don't have the documents with me, 3 or 4 lots, that this may be an option. So, the slopes there, for the most part, are all seeded, and half of them stabilized in the lots that would be impacted. So,
It might be.
all I'm saying is that if, for example,
They're
that
asking
house
very good
there,
questions. I know. I did these.
really just to, if the slope's 3 to 1, then if we go back 4 feet with a 4-foot boulder, the builder, they pick up 10, 12 feet in the backyard. And it would only be on the lots that's sloping towards the road.
So where is this location in reference to the buffer? Because I see a B, is that the bank shown on the bottom right corner? I mean left corner?
Again, I apologize, there's been plans with me.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. The erosion controls that we're seeing, so you're still doing work within the limit of work?
Correct, so it would be at the very toe of that slope, where you can see the loam and seed, for example.
Oh, so you're gonna remove what's already been stabilized?
Yes, and just go back the mathematical 4 feet, you know, to keep the wall below 4 feet. So if that slope is a 3-to-1, some of them are 2.5-to-1, some are 3-to-1. If it's a 3-to-1 and you go back 4 feet from the toe of the slope, you're gonna pick up 12 more feet of backyard, and that's it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. The plans that were approved, this is the approved plan?
Correct.
Okay, I'm not even seeing the limit of work shown on this plan, though.
To the top of the
Because it's
slope,
off the page, it's up the top of up in the corner.
where that tree line is.
The limit of the work is really the silt fence that you see in the photo.
Okay.
It's at the
So,
crest of the hill.
Yes.
and we pushed it there so that it could be stabilized?
We did, because we didn't want to lose the top of the hill.
Right, we didn't want
Okay.
water going towards the,
Okay,
That's the top of the slope, so right down that toe slope at the bottom of the slope, we're looking down, straight down. We're just asking the commission, with the bill to have the flexibility to put in a wall 4 feet, no more than 4 feet. And really, that just moves the top of the wall in a 3-to-1 slope back 12 feet from the toe of the slope. So they're, in a sense, picking up 10 or 12 feet of backyard. And then the rest of the slope is staying exactly the way it is. Up from the top of that boulder wall, proposed possible boulder wall, the slope is staying stabilized, and that slope is not changing from the silt fence back down.
okay.
If that makes, and I did my best 12-year-old sketches.
And where's the other lot? So this is lot 22. You had 20, 21, and 23, or is that
Yeah,
this type?
those are all the lots that slope towards the road. 18 and 19 with the 2 lots that the very back of the yard slope towards the stream. And if everyone remembers, we designed 2 modular block walls and those along with a bleaching basin to protect
That should be
the
fine.
stream. So those 2 lots were already have the most backyard they can have.
Get all the lots approved
And
separately.
they're just possibly, if a homeowner requests, because I think those stakes that you see right there,
He's asking to see if we'd be able to
one,
maybe
2,
even
3
buy a
stakes,
plant.
on stakes, I believe that's the back of the house. So if, and I don't know if this homeowner, I'm not involved with the construction of houses, if this homeowner asked, could he pick up some backyard? The only way I can see, you don't want to impact that slope because that seeded from last fall hasn't grown yet. But if that was all grass, we don't want to disturb that. We just want to go back 12 feet from the design toe slope and put up a 4-foot wall, and then they're going to get 10 or 12 more feet of flat area behind their house.
Okay,
That's all we can do.
right, but I would like to see the other lots, and also I think there was a purpose of the grading for the lots next door to each other. Like 23, I can see the edge of it, and there's still a tree line there, right? So how are we going back 10, 12
I'm not
feet,
sure.
meeting the,
Are you looking at the trees straight ahead?
I don't, no, I'm looking on the
you-
plan.
those were original trees, but those were already removed.
Oh.
The new tree line.
Where's the other lots with a depiction of the walls on them?
Well, that would be all typical because the slope is generally the same throughout the lots, minor changes, so I was trying to show a typical lot.
Well, each
So-
lot has been approved separately, has a separate order.
Oh, okay, then,
So
And
it's
we
not
had
just like
different
one whole
conditions.
project.
yeah, okay,
Yep.
that's my fault. So,
Board, what's our feeling here on the 12-foot maximum? He could call out the grade point and provide these plans.
I don't have a problem with it myself, other than I would not want the water to flow between the lots or go right alongside the wall, because it could undermine the wall, and
Well, we would be creating, we could have the engineer take a stab at it. We would have positive drainage from the bottom of the wall. The wall is
Yeah.
built on a stone base.
Yeah, and you're
We're talking
showing,
about, 4-foot high boulders, probably 4 feet wide. also.
single piece?
Yeah, substantial, one boulder high wall. is what
Oh.
we would build.
Okay, yeah, and this is showing not to the property line.
Are these square boulders? How are you filling in the space
No,
between
not
them?
square, but,
They're round.
it could be square, it would be, but,
I'm from above, but what
it would
around
be-
this way?
it would be hand-picked boulders that would complement the wall. And, we've seen a lot of those things.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, the board's open to allowing this as a minor plan change, but we need a few more details and for record keeping,
Well,
Each lot.
and for each lot.
so can I also add, when we first approved this, board, remind me, did we say that the slope was going to be grassed? Or did we say that it was going to, we did say it was going to be grass? Okay. Because if it's grass versus grass, I'm not going to.
it was a grass, but it wasn't a mown type of grass. It was supposed to be a conservation mix on the slope.
So that's what I thought, because this is what my concern is, if we're turning this flat space into lawn, and it was previously part of a slope that was conservation mix, then I'm going from a multiculture of native species to a monoculture of invasive species, and that's what I would like to avoid. So I would not be amenable to this change.
Okay.
Could we just double check the order and see what was spec'd out for that and?
For sure.
I don't remember.
Right, no, and that's why I'd like to check, but I didn't think that it was, otherwise, I'm surprised this wasn't part of the original plan, right?
Well, yeah, to increase the backyard.
Right, because we knew the backyards were gonna be extremely tight on these houses, yes. But I knew that we pushed them as tight as we could to get as much native growth as close to that wetlands as possible, because these are very tight to the wetlands, and the map doesn't show that super well.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what the
Buffers?
distance is, the maximum or the minimum distance between, that you're requesting between the bank, I think it is, the bank, and, we understand that there's a hill in between, but the distance, the buffer zone distance.
Right, but that was shown on the plan that,
Shown on the plan versus what you're requesting.
Okay, we'll take care of that.
And we can get you on the 25th, April 25th. Okay, thank you. Proposed land donation, do we want to talk about this now? Steve, do you want to talk about this land donation? Landlocked land?
Yeah, I put it back into everyone's folder. I mean, we can look it over and talk about it the next meeting if you want.
Okay.
And it's up in northwest corner off of Northwest Main Street up by the Sun Line. It's really in the middle of nowhere. There's no access to it.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I think there was some discussion from the community development director contact the Commonwealth of Mass. It does border the Commonwealth of Mass land, so it might be for them because there'd be access to it.
Yeah, on the surface, my opinion is that it's not beneficial to the Conservation Commission for the donation even. And there's no wetlands on it, right? So board, we can take a peek at that, but,
yeah, I'm just looking at it now for the first time, so I don't know.
okay, so let's table it. River cleanup update.
Sure. So, the land person gave me some sample fly abutters to look at. We've all kind of made a flyer already. I have a copy of it. We're going to be posting that.
Okay.
Posting on social media. The existing harbor.
Okay.
Names on the poster, so I'll kind of be representing our commission.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry. Is it Mark? Needs to be open a little bit, because public hearing. Sorry. Just tell them to. Okay, sorry about that. So we have 2 things in our packet too. These are just samples from 2018 and, but you want to go with yours? I don't think we have yours.
No, I didn't, yeah.
Okay.
I like the 2018 one, it's very nice.
The round earth.
Yeah, I think my cousin Ellen did that one.
Oh, nice. Okay, so Sue Perkins is still involved? She's still doing, is that what you're saying?
Kind of supporting us, but she's just like giving us reference materials to look at, but
Okay. You made a QR code also?
yeah, this is
Awesome.
what they posted that she made.
Okay. Cool. So it's April 23rd, 2022, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Drop-off event location, Douglas Highway Garage? Okay. Very nice.
Did they get permission already to meet at Douglas Highway Department?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, 'cause I only know in other years we had met at the municipal center because we hadn't worked that out. So as long as it's been worked out, you should be good. This is very nicely done. Look at those very professional fonts.
Is there a phone number?
No, there's an
So
email.
it suggests a phone number for people that don't email or use QR codes. I think a phone number is,
Where does your
helpful.
QR code go?
I haven't tried
You're
that.
supposed to scan it to add which area of town you'll plan to clean up. You can do all the areas.
I understand this. I'm just curious to see how well the QR works.
That would be great. Okay.
Where did,
And there it is.
Name?
So trash bags and gloves, Bill 9, April 23rd, Douglas Highway
What was
Garage.
your question? Do you want to look at it?
So right now at the end of the QR code is the table with, which actually surprisingly works well, the table
It's not a fillable.
with locations. I can't edit it right. This would, so you would have, well, it's got 2 filled in. So you would have to,
No.
no, you would have to contact somebody and say, hey, I want this location. And
Okay.
at least list what the potential locations are and what's already taken.
Yeah, maybe they could do a fill-in name with like a click on which location on the QR website.
Okay.
I don't
There's
know how
an
they're
edit
filling
button.
in.
I can edit the entire thing. I should not be able to do
No.
that.
And it's edible too, so that's,
Okay.
Wait, that's, so I can
okay.
actually fill in data here.
Okay, so don't have them edit the template,
Right,
but
so
then
like,
people can, and then does it say? Does it have directions on how to fill it in?
no, it doesn't.
Maybe
It probably
directions.
depends what style, what phone operating system you're working on.
Yeah, we gotta just make it easy though, too. Okay.
But yes, it is editable, but unfortunately, all the text on the page is editable.
Okay. Steve, did 148 Shore Road continue? Oh. Sorry, I didn't even see you there. The board was in your way. Okay, next item on the agenda, public hearing continued, notice of intent, 148 Shore Road, Joseph and Pamela Peroni. Possible votes?
Yes, we're still waiting for the peer review, so we'll continue.
Okay, all right.
I'm assuming it hasn't come back yet. Is that correct, Steve?
It hasn't.
Okay.
Okay, board, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 148
Is this the one we did a site walk on?
Shore Road. Not
It
me.
is.
Yes, it is.
To when?
To April 25th at 7 PM.
So moved.
Motion made by Art.
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Art Botman, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Bonjamine.
KG Dudley, aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item, 7 PM, public hearing, continued notice of intent, Whiten Reservoir Dam Operation and Maintenance Manual, Whiten Reservoir Watershed District, possible votes. So you have a couple of things in our packet. Is someone here presenting on behalf of that project?
Good evening, my name is Matthew Belisle. I'm with PAR Corporation. I'm here with my colleague Lauren Gluck, who we've met previously, and also here with Paul Coet representing the district. Lauren has been in communication with Natural Heritage, and we have heard back from them as far as their review of the previously conducted vegetation survey. Unfortunately, the survey did not include the species they were looking for, but they did approve the evaluators' credentials for moving forward with additional studies. At this point, we are coordinating with Natural Heritage to define the scope of that additional study, and we'll be looking to get that completed at the next appropriate season, which I believe is early summer. Is that correct, Lauren?
Yeah, I think it would be June timeframe, June or July. We can definitely coordinate with Natural Heritage to get a handle of exactly what the parameters are that they would be looking for.
So we have made steps forward. Unfortunately, we do not have the final documentation to provide to the commission here relative to Natural Heritage review.
Okay, and as far as DEP's comments, they're not really, are you justifying your 6-foot drawdown? They're not too keen on that.
Yeah, we provided the rationale for the 6-foot drawdown and provided, commented to you also as far as the Office of Dam Safety's concurrence with that drawdown. Again, the drawdown is based upon dam safety, the ice flow that develops on the dam, as well as the history of these type of drawdowns being successfully completed at the dam for much longer than the current owner has been operating the reservoir.
Okay, they do not like the permitting of a 6-foot in the past should not lead to the conclusion that a drawdown greater than 3 feet is warranted. So you've provided them documentation from the Office of Dam Safety that the 6-foot drawdown is required to maintain the integrity of the dam?
The Office of Dam Safety has not come across as saying it's required. They do not object to it, and they do feel that it is beneficial to the performance of this dam, particularly under the ice lock conditions that can develop at this structure. We've provided similar information by means of a copied email to you that was provided in the packet during our last meeting.
Okay, so the revised comments through to today should also be addressed with DEP, because I see that they are just from today. So have you seen these comments?
I have not seen comments that arrived today. Have been out of the office all day.
Oh, okay, you weren't sitting by your computer waiting for them? Yeah, pretty hefty comments, so I would be expecting the documentation provided to the board. They are encouraging us to not act until those items are addressed. And they want the conditions required by Natural Heritage to be incorporated into the order.
We'll review those comments.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
get back to you on that since they just came in today.
Yeah.
Didn't sit down at the computer until 7 o'clock. We do have a request on behalf of the district. As you know, this is a operations and maintenance manual request. It does include other ongoing operations and maintenance activities besides the drawdown. There are plans to repoint the stone masonry intake tower this July in compliance with findings of our previous inspection. The district was hoping that we might get approval to move forward with those activities, since they are non-resource area dependent activities. It would be done with diver, and there'd be no dredging or filling of any of the resource areas in question.
Steve, could that qualify as an exempt activity?
Say that again?
Could it qualify as an exempt activity as, you know, riverfront
We'd have to look into that a little bit more. I mean,
for maintenance? Because there is no active order at this time, right? It's expired.
it has.
Yeah. Does the applicant know if they are exempt or if the activity fits into our permissible activity with no permit?
The activity would definitely fall under a limited project status as maintenance to an existing dam. And it may fall into an exempt category, again, given the nature of the work and the no impact to any of the controlled resource areas.
And for dam safety, could we check that? And who was speaking?
Yes.
I'm sorry, was there a comment? Maybe for maintenance.
I was just going to add that in other towns, we have actually gotten negative determinations for work like this, where we're just working on a gatehouse structure or, you know, just a dam structure where there's no approach into the water. So we have gotten away with this type of work without a permit, but with a request for determination.
Right, a negative determination of applicability as a permit. So you have no application, so I'm trying to figure out, or you have a permissible activity, maybe through the dam safety under maintenance of the structure.
This would definitely fall under maintenance of an existing structure. Again, it's just adding or repointing the stone masonry that supports the gatehouse intake tower.
Board, is there any objections to allowing for the repointing? Okay. Okay, so there's a consensus, there is no impact or issue. So what exactly will take place with the repointing?
Yeah, the voids in the masonry structure will be repointed using underwater methodologies, using a process called hot balling, where they create, they have an underwater cement, they mix it up top, they drop it into the water, they use that to put it into the joints, and then it sets up in an underwater condition. The repair will also address the existing trash rack that needs to be repaired itself, and there will be a PVC standpipe that will allow for an automated water level measurement rain gauge data logger system to be installed in here as well. Work is to be done in July and August when the reservoir is at full pool.
Okay. And this activity, we are considering exempt for maintenance of the dam structure. I think we should have everything tidied up by then, though, but, Board.
Just in case we don't.
Yeah. Board, should we have a consensus? Any objections for them moving forward? No. Seeing none, hearing none. Huh?
I have reservations only because they've been so critical of what work is taking place and being protective of the...
Okay, so we have one reservation, so what I would like is if you could supply us with something from Office of Dam Safety referencing this type of activity. I think you have some time, so if we could hash that out, that would be great, but I don't think that if it gets to be July, we can make a decision that we do only have one meeting in July, so it would have to be June. June would be the final to make the meeting. But if you could get a regulation reference allowing that type of maintenance, just so we have a paper trail, that would be great.
It's 302 CMR 10. The dam safety regulations requiring dam owners to take proactive steps to maintain their dams, and this is a proactive step to maintain their dam in a safe working condition. But I can provide that to you with a summary of the work that's proposed for final approval at the next meeting.
Yeah.
But there won't be a regulation that says, you shall repoint your dam. It's you shall maintain your masonry in a safe condition. So just want to set the stage for what we can provide to you relative to that.
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
documented in reports that it's recommended to be done and that it's an observed condition.
Right, I understand that, just the exemption under Wetlands Protection Act that allows you to complete that activity without a permit. Unless you would prefer to just file a request for determination of applicability concurrently, you could do that to cover it, and that is a permit. So, but it's up to you guys. So, and I would touch base with Steve also. Okay.
We'll coordinate that, and thank you for your consideration. You give us, we need to continue the hearing, so we'd like to request a continuance on, obviously, to move this forward.
Okay.
And,
Will you be ready for April 25th meeting?
That's what I'm not sure of. I think I'd like to request a first meeting in May.
Okay. The May 16th, we only have one meeting.
The May 16th, so we
Yeah.
can have had our coordination with DEP and Natural Heritage proceed a little bit further on.
Okay.
I don't want to clog up your agenda, and I just want to keep this moving forward, though.
I just had a quick request between now and that meeting. Could you send us, and an email to Steve would be fine, a reference on the hotballing process? I'm not seeing anything about it on the overall internet, and I'm just interested in the process. I'm not familiar. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to May 16th at 7 PM. Motion made by Art.
Second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Mark Buffini, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Mangum,
PG Dudley, aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, that turned into quite a... Okay, next item on the agenda. Public hearing, notice of intent. That was public hearing continued. 0 Mumford Road, 5 Forest Street, definitive subdivision plan, Sutton Douglas Development. Thought for a second I was that plan for. Come on down. We do have a DEP number.
You do?
Yes, we do. Lots of,
Go ahead. No, you're up here.
lots of comments on stormwater. And where would you like to begin? Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Wayne Bellick, Land Design Collaborative. I'm joined tonight by one of my colleagues, Mike Scott. Mike is the professional engineer who had done the stormwater analysis on the project. Mike and I are joined tonight by Tim Flynn of Flynn Build and Develop. We're here on behalf of the landowner, Sutton Douglas Development. So again, thank you for having us. If we could, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Steve to fire up the PDF. I emailed him earlier today that is the presentation for tonight's meeting.
Sure, hang on 1 second.
Thank you, Steve. As you noted, Madam Chair, there was a DEP file number issued for the project, and we had at our last meeting, if I could, so it looks like we have a full complement of the commission tonight, which is nice. So thank you for everybody being here. We had, there was a question that had come up at the last meeting about, seeking clarification or providing clarification to DEP as to what the notice of intent filing entailed. I did reach out to them, emailed them, and, just presented that it was raised by the commission, and that we wanted to just confirm clarification of that. So thank you again. Didn't hear back from them, but we got a DEP file number, so I think that kind of tells us that they were okay with it. So again, do appreciate it, and it looks like Steve's got the presentation fired up. Thank you, Steve. So again, as you can see, we do have a DEP file number issued, and it's for the record 143-1043. Steve, if you could go to the next slide, please. Tim, is there anything you'd like to say as we begin?
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So again, just as an update to the commission, I know, Madam Chair, you've heard this presentation so many times you could probably do it yourself. I wouldn't doubt it. So I will go through a presentation as we discussed at the last meeting. And like the last meeting, I'm going to start with the agenda. Basically, we're looking to provide you guys with the update of the hearings attended since the opening of the planning board hearing on March 10th. So on March 7th, it was the Douglas Conservation Commission opening the public hearing, which was extended due to the T&G publication error, and it was extended to March 21st. On March 10th, we met with the Douglas Planning Board and opened the public hearing, presented, and the hearing was continued to April 14th. On March 14th, we met with the Sutton Planning Board, opened the public hearing, presented, and the hearing was continued to April 11th. On March 21st, we met with this commission, had an abbreviated presentation, and continued the public hearing, and had a brief Q&A session with your commission and the abutters, and it was continued to tonight. So with that, I'd like to jump into the project presentation. So Steve, if you could go to the first plan slide. Thank you. So as you folks can see, the site is highlighted in yellow here. There's a red line that for reference, north is up the sheet. There is a red line that goes from the west to the east at the top of the sheet. That is the town line between the towns of Sutton and Douglas. Douglas being to the south, Sutton being to the north. As you can see, the majority of the property is located in the town of Douglas, with a small portion to the north, roughly about 4 to 5 acres, and the balance of the 130-acre parcel, so roughly about 125 acres or so, is located in the town of Douglas. Up to the north, the property is bound by Duval Road. To the east, Mumford Road. To the west, Forest Street. And there's a 20-foot wide strip that goes out to Conservation Drive. And then to the south, just some residential properties. There is the, Steve, I'm going to call it the Mumford River again, and I forgot what you said it is referred to, so I apologize.
I think it's the Whitens Reservoir Brook.
Whitens Reservoir Brook. So I'm going to get tongue.
It's an unnamed stream, Wayne, but that kind of, it comes out of Whitens Reservoir.
Okay, thank you. So that is the stream that goes through the site, and there's a BVW associated with that, and no floodplain on the property, but there is some natural heritage. So Steve, if we could flip to the next slide, please. So this next slide is a blow-up of the site, again with the town line and that lime green toward the north of the sheet, again north-oriented up the sheet. As you can see, the majority of the site is wooded, with the exception of that portion located in Sutton at number 61 Duval Road, which is a single-family house developed lot. And the other developed lot is over at 5 Forest Street in the town of Douglas, which would be located to the southwest on this exhibit. Those are the 2 points of access to the property through several parcels that are all in common ownership. The site, as you can see, there's a lighter green color that you can see throughout the site, which is the bordering vegetated wetlands, that this commission last year issued an ORAD following the filing of an ANRAD for the project. And if you recall, as part of that process, the commission confirmed a portion of the resource areas, and it was that portion that was to the west, in the northwest of the Wetlands River, Mumford River, Wetlands, thank you, Tim. Wetlands Reservoir Brook, thank you. And then to that, the BVW. And the thought process there was no project being proposed on the other side, being that southeast side. So with that, the commission did approve those, confirm those resource areas at that time, and to this point, we had sought confirmation of those resource areas in the town of Douglas, because the work within conservation jurisdiction on any community and under the Wetlands Protection Act was being solely proposed in the town of Douglas and not in the town of Sutton. So as I said, there are two strips that go out to other roads, being to the east, Mumford Road, 20-foot wide strip. That is all resource area. The other strip, which you don't see here, goes out to Conservation Drive. That's all resource area as well. And that's basically it in terms of the resource areas. In terms of the vegetation, as you can see, it is vegetated. The topography on the site generally goes from west to east, and it starts at the high elevations on the subdivision to the west and descends in elevation at some moderate to steep slopes, and then flatter slopes in the low-lying area down by the resource areas. There is a man-made channel that runs from south to north and eventually flows into a stream in a 36-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert under Duval Road. This channel takes the runoff from the subdivision down up above, which is unmitigated. They never installed any catch basins, no stormwater collection system, no detention basins or retention basins. So all that runoff enters upon the property unmitigated. It comes down, hits that channel, and continues to flow north. Once it goes through that culvert during a 100-year storm event or so, what tends to happen is, because the culvert at the road grade is higher than the wetland system, that area, which kind of serves as a large detention basin, tends to surcharge, and there's a breach point on the property where some of that runoff continues to flow under the culvert, but then goes over the breach point and makes its way to the Wetlands Brook Reservoir. Wetlands Reservoir Brook, thank you. Mumford is much easier. So again, that's basically how it works. Steve, if we could go to the next slide, which shows the hydrology, generally speaking. So when we looked at this, we looked at the pre and post development hydrology for the site. What we found when we were out in the field was that the limits, the upper reaches of the watershed areas were consistent with what we saw on the maps. And that is that the developed subdivision to the west, there was a break point 3/4 of the way up Fairfax or so, 3/4 of the way or so up Fairfax and Belvoir, and Alice, that there was a breaking grade that came toward the site, and again, generally speaking, down to that channel. There's a portion of the flows that flows toward the town of Sutton, and what we did is, when we looked at this, being homeowners ourselves and having looked at this type of approach in the past, on other projects, obviously we're concerned about the impacts on abutting property, so that when we analyzed this, we looked at from lot corner to lot corner, what's coming through and hitting that property. We did that for pre and post, so you'll see that in the post-development hydrologic maps as well. Steve, if we could go to the proposed, thank you. So what we have, again, same orientation, north up the sheet. We are proposing a series of roads, 4 roads in here. The main spine road is Road A. The loop road is Road B, that's to the east of Road A. Off of that is Road C, and then a connector road from Road A up to Forest Street. The lengths of the road, Road A is about 2,700 feet in length, Road B is about 1,320 feet, Road C is about 680 feet, and Road D is 879 feet. So these roads, again, we've tried to follow the topography while at the same time complying with the subdivision rules and regs. We are going to be seeking waivers from the planning board to allow us to better follow that topography and try to minimize the footprint of cuts and fills on the property. Stormwater on the site, these lots, by the way, will be serviced by their own private septics in wells. We are proposing 31 homes up here, 2 of which are reduced frontage lots, and those are located at the end of cul-de-sac B. This filing tonight, as I said, is specific to the subdivision and stormwater infrastructure and is totally independent of the filings that will be following on those lots within your jurisdiction at a later date, once we get through the approval process with Concom and planning on the project. So in terms of stormwater, we are looking at a system that is primarily a closed system. We are employing some lid principles here, and those being thinking small, seeking relief to, again, road grades, road widths, seeking relief to providing only 1 sidewalk rather than 2. And in terms of the stormwater, ideally we would have loved to comply with lid requirements or design it to a lid type of system rather than the closed system. But as this commission knows, and anybody familiar with stormwater, you need ideal conditions for lid. You basically need flatter sites, well-draining soils, and clearly we don't have this here in terms of both the terrain and the soils. The soils primarily out here are hydrologic soil group C. We did see that when we were doing some soil testing on the site that there was some evidence of B soils out here as well. So what that means in the end is, when we looked at the site pre and post hydrology, we analyzed it, taking that into account in the changes in ground cover.
What do you mean by B and C soils?
So the B soils are, so for instance, your B soils, A and B soils are primarily your sandy gravels and sands. Your B soils are sands and loamy sands. Once you get into your C soils, they're sandy loams, silt, till type soils. Did that answer the question, Mark? Through the chair?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So from a stormwater perspective, if we could flip to the next slide, please. So for those of you who remembered the previous slide, as you can see, the limits of the watershed are the same pre and post construction. The only changes are the distribution to some degree within the tributary areas for which we had compensated in the stormwater management study. We ran as required by the state stormwater regulations. We had run the hydrology for the 210 and the 100-year storm events, and sized the system with a closed drainage system that discharges to a number of stormwater basins. The basins are located including the infiltrative components of the basins, are located beyond 50 feet of the resource areas. As the commission knows, you have a requirement that says that, you know, the basins need to be located beyond the 50 feet, which we have. This is basically, like I said, the proposed hydrology, and we can get into it a little bit more with Mike Scott, like I said, the engineer on the project, to answer any questions that come up on stormwater, which has at the previous hearing, and I'm sure will come up tonight. Steve, if we could go to the next slide, please.
Basin 702?
Yes.
And Basin 403?
Yes.
You saw those?
Yes.
Those are 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. So this basically, Steve, when we were communicating with Steve at one point, he had asked for a presentation slide showing the infrastructure in red. It's hard to see here, but the infrastructure in here, the stormwater infrastructure, is shown in red. What you'll notice, and one interesting point that I'll note here as well, kind of thinking of the whole lid thing, is we have stormwater, unmitigated stormwater coming off the site to the west, entering onto our property. We didn't want to route that through our system. So what we had done is we had proposed an interceptor swale on the upgradient side of those lots to shunt those flows to where they naturally go today, down to the channel below. The rest of the system goes through our system, which are deep sump hooded catch basins, stormwater treatment units, and then into the infiltration detention basins, which again attenuate those flows from the site. Steve, next slide, please.
So just
Yes.
getting back to the basins, there was a comment, the description of the systems. Can you describe the stormwater DMPs proposed to ensure water quality is maintained in the Mumford River and in tributaries?
Yep.
It looks like not all of the stormwater would flow to a BMP. So as you're at the BMPs, can you just kind of touch on that?
I can, and I'd like to defer to Mike. Mike, if you wouldn't mind stepping up and.
I don't want to
addressing
interrupt
some-
you, but I
No, that's
prefer
fine,
if we
Madam Chair.
address, so that.
Specific questions. that
Yeah.
we-
That's fine.
but yeah, specific
Because it
issues
is
that we care for.
quite- Yeah, it is quite complex, and there's regulations that we need to meet.
Yep.
But general questions for the audience, as far as the description of the system, and describe the stormwater BMPs proposed to ensure water quality is maintained in the Mumford River and its tributaries, and it appears that not all the stormwater would flow into a BMP.
Sure. Mike Scott from Land Design Collaborative. The majority of the stormwater actually is collected, as Wayne described, like start off site, uphill, coming down to the site. The majority of that stormwater that runs onto the property is diverted in open swales and then released, so it's not commingled with the roadway or the future development. On site, below the development of the homes, future development of the homes, so within the roadway corridors, all of that stormwater would be collected by stormwater management system. The portions of the property that might right now presently not be showing any kind of stormwater management collection would be the future lot driveways, which would be apparent on a slide or two ago, or one of the exhibits that shows the future build out of the property. So the entire roadway network is treated through deep sump catch basins, what I'll call primarily a conventional stormwater drainage system of catch basins, manholes, in this case, water quality units. So sort of end of run, pre-discharge into the stormwater basin, the open basin. So you have catch basins, and then you have the treatment units, and then you have the vegetated open basins, of which there are, it's probably 8 or 10, I didn't count them. We have the numbering scheme is really based on how we break up the areas or divide the areas based on sub-watersheds. So there's probably 8 or 10 open basins, and I can get you the number, but for the purposes of this discussion, all the roadway runoff will make it to one of those systems. I don't believe we have any direct discharges off into a buffer zone that's not treated. There would be, as presently shown on some of the exhibits, driveways that, would not necessarily be, and those are the ones that are out on the end of, Wayne described the two reduced frontage lots that are out on the end of Road B, which is the cul-de-sac that is the northern cul-de-sac that runs to the east, sorry.
Okay. And can you clarify how the proposed project seeks to ensure future residents would not have flooding challenges because you're using the TP40? So there's a concern using that method. And if you can kind of, touch on that justification of using that method and ensuring that there's not going to have flooding in the future.
Well, before we started any calculations here, I actually reached out to Steve Zisk because we thought we were going to be filing in two communities. We wanted to make sure if there was a requirement in one that we met it in the other. And the answer here was that there was no local standard for, the state hasn't adopted the Atlas 14 or the Cornell rainfall of the state. If a community has its standard, we tend to follow it. If we don't, we're still following what's published at the DEP's website, which is the TP40 data. Having said that, the practice that I've had with the engineers I've worked with for the past 20 plus years is we take the rainfall data that's actually stated in the wetlands protection regulations. The 3, the 10, and the 100 are cited for various reasons as being 3.2, 4.8, and 7 inches of rainfall. So in this part of the state, a 7-inch rainfall is probably 10% greater than what TP40 would return. If I punched in TP40, I'd get more. If I looked it on a curve, I'd get 6.4, 6.5. So we're already estimating on the order of, a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch over what I bet most of your applications provide, but unless they're already volunteering to use those higher numbers. We've been waiting for the state to come up with a decision, whether it's Cornell or how they're sounding like they're going to use the Atlas 14 and plus 90 or whatever it is. So that would be on the order of 10, 9.5, 10 in this region. So a pretty considerable jump, but I would argue that that number will change in 20 years anyway if we're going to continue to play this, let's use the statistics. Where do you stop? So our feeling is let's use the numbers that are published in the regulations that you're tasked with enforcing, that state published, 3.2, 4.8, and 7, and we've just been using those numbers, which again would be higher than what TP40 would return.
Okay. And you did file in Sutton, correct?
No.
Okay. DEP saying that project must also be filed in Sutton.
So we respectfully disagree with that.
Okay.
And the reason we respectfully disagree is because we're not proposing any work within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction in Sutton. There's no work within a buffer zone or resource area. Everything is up gradient of that in the town of Douglas.
Okay. Could we figure out why the comment is there? Is it stormwater?
I'm not exactly sure what the comment is.
We can reach out to
We can reach out.
Yeah, we can reach out
Next
to this
meeting.
one.
Okay.
It has been filed with the Sutton Planning Board, obviously.
It is.
Okay. And then back to the basin. So are we doing additional test pits? They did mention that to have the minimum of 3. Are we doing additional?
So, Madam Chair, we typically do that as part of during the construction process, and we would, ask the commission, condition that in their decision, in their order, that confirmation test pits be done out there. We had gone through and we estimated, based on the soil testing that we had done out there, if we had a situation where we had observed estimated seasonal high groundwater at 30 inches, we estimated that we would encounter that in that area. So the thought process is if it's 30 inches, if it's 27 inches, based on the contour interval that we're looking at out here is 2 foot, and, based on survey, it's only, the accuracy is only as good as half the contour interval. If we have to raise it 3 inches, 4 inches, a half a foot, it's not going to make a difference. So we're going to, as we've done before, is with the town's peer review consultant, would be going out there confirming the estimated seasonal high groundwater during construction.
Yeah, DEP's saying test pits are required at the location, so I don't know when they are required. If that's your request, we'll have to talk about that.
Okay.
If they're required in the design phase, I'm not sure if we've ever conditioned for exploratory or confirmatory testing after we've issued the order.
Okay, Madam Chair.
But we'll just need clarification on that.
Sure, and I think with, if I could, as you know, the peer review consultants are about to weigh in with their findings. I think once we see that, that certainly will help in seeing what their thoughts are in terms of their review, and perhaps that is the time to coordinate and do some testing.
Okay. And how did you classify the land use for the house lots for the stormwater report? Did you do clear to vegetation?
We modeled them as lawn, roof, and so disconnected rooftops and disconnected impervious for the driveways. So if ever, there, as you saw in that couple slides ago, there's a considerable number of sub-watersheds. But if you look at the summary for each of those, you'll see the breakout of the roof. You'll see the breakout of the disconnected impervious, and you'll see which the rest of the impervious would be the roadway or the sidewalk. And then lawns, we classify things as lawn. But we did show the proposed tree line that's shown on the slide, which is a slide or two back, was what we used for the build out of the future. Yeah, so this would have been where we took the limits of clearing. And those limits were predicated obviously around the stormwater basins and the grading that you would see on the subdivision plans that have been filed. That would be the road network and the stormwater. That was easy or crystal clear. For the other lots, what we did was we cited, based on the soil type, we did sort of a preliminary ballpark for a primary and reserve area, and said at least this much of the lot is going to be cleared for the septic. And that's how we laid out. And then, of course, the driveway and any sort of grading, we gave ourselves a corridor along each of the driveways. So feel like it's a realistic build-out scenario. The homes, I don't know what size homes are on each lot, but...
Yes, I think we had like 30 by 70, 30 by 80 foot homes on the lots.
You can see, the graphic representation, but there's meant to be a two-car garage plus a building box adjacent to that. So we didn't pick a starter ranch that, we might all like to buy again, because we can afford it. But, these are building boxes that are big enough that something will fit within in the future. And again, we did cite the septic and the driveway. And the driveways are realistic to the terrain. We didn't just give you a straight shot up a 3-to-1 slope. We factored in that there will be some earthwork, obviously tree clearing, some earthwork, and pavement to accommodate the grades. So that's all broken out. Maybe we didn't spell it out in the stormwater narrative, but it's explicit in the numbers.
Calculation, yeah.
There's a breakdown in the plans of those quantities?
In the stormwater.
No, that would fall out of the stormwater report. That slide, which is behind your head, that slide could be tabulated, though we could break out, each lot as it were. That's not how the stormwater report's going to break out because of the way the grades are, but again.
Yeah, just the type of
we can give you a summary of what we chose for the total build out, if that would be helpful. Take the data that we had.
I think the method that you're using is acceptable on that.
There are other ways. This is 1 acre plus lots. There's a curve number for 1 acre plus. I never use it because to me that's a little disingenuous because clearly that's not homogeneous. But if the subdivision next door, that's a good example of a half acre or quarter acre type development where it's a little more uniform. I've used it for urban areas, but not for this type of rural.
Okay, and you did touch on the low impact development. So which principles are being proposed? If you could run those down for me.
So again, Madam Chair, we're looking at really nothing within the stormwater itself. But basically what we're doing is we're minimizing the pavement width, as you know, looking to seek relief from there. The sidewalks on one side of the road versus two, seeking relief to the road grades in order that we can minimize the clearing on the lots. We have cited the stormwater basin, so ideally in lid, as you know, and again, based on the soils on the site and the terrain, it doesn't really work here for stormwater. So if we were to look at following the principles of lid, and one of the principles is thinking small and attenuating stormwater at the source. If we were looking at the site and trying to attenuate stormwater at the source, over to the west of the steeper slopes, the source. So if we were to do something in that location, there'd be elongated basins with a lot of off-grading associated with that, a lot of tree clearing. So there are a couple areas on lots, I think the 4 and 5, we have a couple stormwater basins in there. It worked out great topographically, where we were able to create a couple basins there, but the remainder of the basins are down below. So it's basically looking at grading out the site, minimizing the impacts, seeking relief from the planning board to allow us to do that.
Okay, so really nothing.
Well, I'll go.
Okay, all right, if you could just speak to the stormwater.
Yeah, so just, this is a page out of the Stormwater Handbook, and it describes how you can obtain lid credit 1 as an example. But there's 9 criteria. This is what basically every engineer should strive for, even if you can't hit them all. But, one of the big things, the first one is you got to keep the impervious down. So on this is 130 plus acres, of which 30 or 40% of it is effectively outside the limits of development, maybe more. But the criteria says specifically to keep the percentage of impervious down to 15%. Now, you throw out a bunch, in this calculation, you throw out a bunch of land, like floodplain, wetlands, and all that. But I did the calculation this morning on the total area, which actually includes some of the off-site, which I then subtracted back out. There's about 5% of impervious on the property. Now, if we throw out the wetlands and some other stuff, that number is going to go up. But to get the lit credit, you need 15%. We're going to be in that range, as an example. We're not asking for it, and I'm not going to run through it. And then there's a handful of other ones. No alteration to coastal. That doesn't not applicable. No alteration to BVWs or isolated. That So of the first 3, 2 of them we're making an attempt, or we've satisfied the no alteration. And it continues to go on. It talks about staying out of the buffer zone and reducing the amount of work in the buffer zone. And you had a slide, or we saw the calculation as to the extent of work in the buffer zone. So as you run through these, we didn't hit them all 99%, but we probably hit them all 70% or some of them 100%. Okay. And infiltration systems, in and of themselves, really are a lid measure. If you can, I know they're required these days. We didn't call for the roof recharge systems yet. We don't know that that's certainly a good practice that could be added. But you have a well and a septic. We're not pumping the sewer off-site. If that were an option here, which again doesn't really get the credit it should, but it should factor in that regard.
Okay, all right, thank you. While we're on Stormwater Board, do we have any questions? Or no, we can. One. Oh. Yeah.
I of course do.
Yeah. Well, we have a break here.
I'm looking at these areas like on the upper side of lots 2, 3, 4, 5, where you're creating this ditch with riprap in it, clearing trees to do so. What is the purpose of that shunting of water that you're doing with the development of the ditch in that location?
So I can answer that, or you can, Mike?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So as we stated, I'm already there. So as we stated earlier, that stormwater from the up gradient subdivision is all unmitigated. It's coming onto the property. The thought there was, Madam Chair, to intercept that stormwater runoff, and rather than have it go through our systems, which would blow up the basins to larger footprints, resulting in more clearing, we would intercept it as it currently goes down to the ditch and the resource areas down below and reroute it around our development, an independent drainage system around our development, so that it doesn't have to flow through our basins, causing them to blow up in size.
Okay, I'm looking at the road D, and it looks like a shunted drainage way. The outfall looks like it goes into the same basin that the road drainage goes into, so how is that separate?
So in that particular case, the stormwater was coming down through that area. It is an area that just in that area there's a kettle hole. So there's a portion of that watershed that goes into the kettle hole, and I think it's on the Prince property, where localized stormwater goes into that. So the runoff generated up above is all going to be undisturbed It's natural, it's going to be left in its natural state. So that's just going to be just like overland runoff that comes from the property, as you can see, up toward the intersection of Road D, just comes from the property and is intercepted in the swale. It's not as if it's coming down from the developed lots from above.
So aren't the two drainage systems combined in that area?
Yes, but it's only because this is the one, Mike, that goes down to basin 402 or 401.
501?
Does that one get piped through?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I think that one, that comes into our system. I could take a look at that. But again, there's no, that's all natural up there, up gradient of that. So that, I thought that was coming through. I mean, not being piped through the system. I think it might be.
So how does the shunting help you?
We have a
in the development?
parallel system.
Oh, you said it makes the detention basins, you feel it makes the detention basins smaller?
Oh, absolutely. So if we were to take all that runoff and take it through and attenuate it through our system, it will cause our systems to be larger. Because that runoff that's unmitigated up above is not coming through our system, the pre and post, in order to mitigate those rates as they go to the respective design points, it allows us to do that without attenuating for the off-site flows.
I don't have the plan in front of me, but the two systems that come down from the Road D area, there's actually parallel drainage systems in Road A that allows the water to not reach a basin. And those basins are discharged, sorry, those two systems are discharged independent of the basins. So up near the center of the site, where water is piped down to Road A, it then crosses Road A and is discharged below any basin. And the same thing happens on the low side or the south side of Road D. So to Mark's point, there is a drainage system that collects that. It does send it in a different direction, and we could highlight that on the plan if that would be helpful.
Just one more question. How many acres are being cleared?
So we
have you
have,
estimated?
Yep, so for when all is said and done, after the development of the lots, of the 130 acres, the land area for development is going to be about 75 acres. Of that, that's going to be cleared, looking at 2-acre lots and figuring 1 acre of development per lot. So that's roughly 30 acres from the 75, probably about 45 or 50 acres of the 130. And if I could, Madam Chair, of the development that we're proposing, there's about 40 acres of buffer zone on the property that was confirmed by the ORAD. Work within the 25-foot no disturb zone, there's no work within there. Work within the 50-foot no structure zone, there's operating in those areas of about 4 thousandths of an acre, and that's purely for the sidewalk. Between the 50 and the 100 of the total acreage of 130 acres, or of the 40 acres, there's about 2.4 acres, 1/10 of an acre is road and sidewalk. So on the 100-foot buffer zone, there's a total of 2.8 acres as part of this roadway and associated infrastructure that's being altered, which is less than 1/10% of the buffer zone area on the site. So again, in terms of the resource areas, no BVW, bank, or riverfront area is being altered under this proposal.
And that slideshow is available on your website for the project.
Correct, yep.
Thank you.
Okay. How many more slides do you have in your?
I think that was it, Madam Chair. We do have in fact, you brought up the website, and if Steve would be so kind as to leave that up on the screen for a few minutes as we start to field some questions through the chair. At least the folks at home can see where they can reach out to that website.
Yes, good.
Thank you.
Okay, board, any other questions so far? We're still waiting for the peer review, so.
You said that there was no construction in the bordering vegetating wetlands?
That's correct.
Okay. Because I've noticed the end of Road C, that cul-de-sac comes incredibly close to the edge. Is it your intent that for those house lots, you'll go kind of the long way around, and therefore you won't have any encroachment on you won't have any wetlands crossings?
So, Madam Chair, we will be, we're proposing a wetland crossing through that area. There is a channel. When we do come through here, the intent would be not to impact the resource areas, not to impact the banks, and design the crossing to meet the stream crossing standards, that is full bank width and the openness ratio. So the structure that would be coming through there with, it's probably not going to be like a box culvert, probably more like a small bridge type structure for a common driveway to come through there to serve those two lots.
Okay, because you have both a stream and a wetland in two different locations.
That's correct.
That's the stream crossing, that's the wetland. Well, this is lot 22 and 23 is what I'm talking about specifically. But my more general question is, I'm just making sure that none of these lots, like internal to the area 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 14, 13, none of those have crossings.
That's correct.
Graded
Yeah.
on 22 as the road meets. That's just the right of way, though.
What?
This portion is the right of way, it's not the actual paved width.
Okay, but I mean, I would have to look at a more detailed plan to see that, understood.
Yeah, you should have brought yours back. You
Show,
never got one?
I know that I saw one.
so,
I stole it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there's another one, but.
That's fine.
so through the chair, that would be under the future filings, and at that point, we'll provide the commission with 20 scale plans and all the details associated with that.
Yeah.
So under this proposal, there is nothing proposed in terms of resource area alteration.
Right, yeah, Road C's cul-de-sac appears very close to the edge, but that's just that's the actual right of way.
Layout, that's correct.
Not the paved width.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. If anyone has any questions in the audience on this agenda item, if you could raise your hand, and then once you're addressed, name and address for the record. And I'll take anyone in the audience live here who would like to make any comments or questions. Nope, no? Okay. Not seeing any hands raised online. Mrs. Prince? Are you trying?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, name and address, please.
Lucille Prince, 1 Forest Street, Douglas. I don't remember what he termed it exactly, but it had something to do with treatment. When he was talking about the water and the catch basins and stuff, and there were going to be so many treatment, I don't know if he said facilities, or I just wanted to know what that was.
Okay.
Want me to get that? You can get it.
In this case, we have called for a hydrodynamic separator, a CDS unit. So it's a prefabricated, call it a fancy manhole, that is designed to separate, to retain floatables or other debris or trash, oils or greases that make it their way past a catch basin, as well as to pull sediment or finer suspended materials out of suspension and trap them. And there is a sizing protocol that's outlined by the manufacturer and vetted by Massachusetts and the other regional stormwater communities. So it would be those types of concrete structures. Those would then discharge to a stormwater basin. So those would be maintained sort of conventionally with a Vector truck, or in the old days a clamshell, but a vacuum truck that would then de-water back into the basin usually.
Is that something that the town does in terms of maintenance going forward?
Yes, should the town choose to accept the roadways as public ways, that's correct, through the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? Name and address? Questions? concerns. This is, we're still waiting on the peer review. This will be continued if you have any questions. Steve, could you move the slide one forward so the audience can see the website? Couple forward, maybe? Oh, there was a lot of slides left.
There you go, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so board, I'll entertain a motion. You're gonna be ready for April 25th? Okay.
April 25th? Is it the 25th?
Yes.
Oh. It's 2 weeks.
It's a Monday, 2 weeks from now, yeah.
2 weeks. 3 weeks.
Be present.
Today's the 4th.
Yeah, that's probably a holiday. It's
That's a wedding anniversary.
after,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not our holiday.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's for you.
Okay,
What is today, the 4th?
It's 3 weeks, but the next Monday is the holiday.
Yes,
So, oh, I'm sorry.
There's only one meeting next.
Okay.
yes.
Correct.
The 16th, yes.
I'm sorry, thank you.
So we try to get everything by next meeting. I'll entertain a motion to continue to April
April 25th?
Yep, 7 PM.
So moved.
Motion made by Art, second by Eric. All those in favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Art Bobbity, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Mangumai.
Dudley, aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, a
then.
pleasure as
Thank you
always.
very
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We've got a request to continue the next public hearing for 105 and 123 Gilboa Street to April 25th at 7 PM.
So moved.
Motion made by Art,
Second.
second by Mike. All those in favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Art Bobbity, aye.
Mark Mangumai.
Katie Dudley, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Sorry, Mike.
I got you, Mike.
It's okay.
Okay.
Wasn't looking.
And new business.
Continue to the 25th?
Oh,
425?
yes, April 25th, yep.
See, that's right, Easter gets in there and something else.
Okay, public hearing notice of intent, Red Pine Trail Douglas Improvement Project adjacent to and access from the Wallace Street parking area, Bay State Trail Riders Association. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Town of Douglas Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on April 4th, 2022 at 7 PM for an NOI filed by Becky Gallagher, COBSTRA, located at Red Pine Trail for work to be done pursuant to the Town of Douglas Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40. The proposed work adjacent and access from the Wallace Street parking area involves repair and maintenance activities for an existing trail. Some of the proposed activities are within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands and includes a small boardwalk over an intermittent stream. Public participation will be available by attending the meeting at Town of Douglas Municipal Center located at 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass, or pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16, 2021 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18. The public may participate in this meeting via remote participation. Website for the meeting will be provided on conservation agenda posted on the town's website at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Copies of the NOI may be examined electronically by contacting Conservation Commission, 508-476-4000, extension 205. Okay, name and address.
Okay, for the record, Margaret Bacon, Civil Site Engineering, and I'm here representing, I have Becky Gallagher with me, who represents the Bay State Trail Riders Association, and we're here requesting a permit to do some work on the existing Red Pine Trail that's in the DEM State Forest. And just to get your bearings, I don't know if you're familiar where this location is here, but this trail here off of Northwest Main Street is the gravel parking area for the trail.
Ridge Trail.
Right. So anyway, you park there, and then you walk down this trail, kind of parallel to Northwest Main Street. There's the parking area, and then here's the trail that goes adjacent to this wetland area right here. And so what they would like to do, DEM, is to take the existing trail. We talked about initially, instead of building it up, because right here, because of the wetland here and the intermittent stream in the springtime, it gets quite muddy and it's not very conducive to pedestrian traffic. So instead of building that trail up, actually, we decided on that might be a better option is to relocate the trail away from that area. And so basically, that's pretty much what we're doing, is we're taking the existing trail, relocating it about 10 feet away from the existing trail, and then where that intermittent stream traverses the area, put in a wooden boardwalk, okay? And that actually, this kind of shows the area where the new trail's going to go, with the intermittent stream here, and this is what the existing trail looks like right now. It's dull, it's quite muddy.
You have a detail on the boardwalk and the material?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
Right up here, and Becky and I want to talk about the boardwalks they typically install at these trails, if you want.
That boardwalk is going to be 6 foot wide, 12 foot long, and it's actually going to be all made out of fiberglass reinforced polymer materials, FPRs. It'll be set up like a Lego type of thing, bring it out there, assemble it, put it together, and it's not going to rot. You're not going to be contaminating the wetlands with anything.
The same kind of material we talked about last week.
Correct.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
More sense.
What's the foundation for it?
2 granite slabs.
Very nice. Very
Where do you
nice.
get the granite slabs from?
DCR has them.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were finished or not. I wanted to just ask about that.
Unless you have any other, it's pretty
Do you,
straightforward.
yeah, do you have a DEP number?
You know, I just looked online again, and
Yeah, me
they
too.
don't, and we did put in a request last week, and it's
Okay.
been a month, and,
Yeah,
you know.
I
so-
saw that, and the warehouse got theirs, and they put it in the same exact day as you.
We'll probably get it tomorrow. That's
Yeah,
what happened.
probably.
So I
Okay.
guess if we can just continue it to the next one.
Yeah. Is there a time sensitivity on this?
Not really.
Okay.
We're going
When
to
do you
wait for
plan
the
to
dry
do
up
the work?
somewhat anyways for it to,
Okay.
for the
To do the
optimum
work.
time to do any work out there.
Okay. Steve, could you have their order prepared for the next meeting?
Okay.
Okay.
There's no railing, right?
No, no.
How
because
high
it's-
off the ground is it? Just not very high.
No, I don't even think it would be a foot off the ground.
It's 15 inches from the deepest part of the wetlands, but it's not that high
The
off the
granite
ground.
slab is how tall.
Yeah, so I got 1 to 1.5 foot, where
what it's
the
higher.
intermittent stream is, and then they had the granite slab, so probably wouldn't be that high.
Yeah. So this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this item? Seeing none? Okay, board. I'll entertain a motion to continue to April 25th.
So moved.
Motion made by Art,
Second.
second by Mike. All those in favor to April 25th at 7 PM?
Eric Harris, aye.
Art Motley, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Mungem,
KG Dudley, aye.
Okay, we'll see you on the 25th. Thank you. Thanks for waiting. Next item, the RDA public meeting. The advertisement was an incorrect address, so that's going to be on our next meeting. And then notice of intent, Conservation Drive, new dwelling, Lucky Dam Properties, Inc. Town of Douglas Conservation Commission, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Legal notice for public hearing pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. The Town of Douglas Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on April 4th, 2022 at 7 PM for a notice of intent filed by Lackey Dam Properties located at 22 Conservation Drive for work to be done pursuant to the Town of Douglas Wetland Bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40. The proposed work involves construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, septic system, and associated utilities. Public participation will be available by attending the meeting at the Town of Douglas Municipal Center located at 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass., or pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16th, 2021, order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18. The public may participate in this meeting via remote participation. A website for the meeting will be provided on the conservation agenda posted on the town's website at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Copies of the notice of intent may be examined electronically by contacting the Conservation Commission at 508-476-4000, extension 205. March 28th. March 28th, okay. It's close.
Yeah, do we have?
Close, but made it. What?
We have 5 business?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Wait, do we have 5 business?
Wait a minute.
We do.
Count. Does today count? The 28th?
Today's count, but the day it was posted doesn't. You have to count, you have to not count one of the 2 bookends,
Okay.
but you don't not count both of them.
Okay, all right. Okay. Applicant, name and address for the record. And I'll just say, I don't believe this has been logged in at all with DEP, so did you send it to them electronically? Jude?
Jude, are you muted?
You are muted.
He's not on mute, but his volume must be way down.
Your volume is down. Something's wrong with your microphone.
No, I get
Oh,
it.
there you go.
Now.
Yeah.
I was just trying to surprise you guys.
Surprise, we're awake.
Me too. Yeah, I did submit it to DP. I emailed it to them, and I also sent it certified mail.
Okay, it's not logged in yet, but you might want to follow up because it's odd that it's not logged in yet. So do you have a plan? You want to do a screen share and walk us through the plan?
Yeah, sure.
Mark, could I have the file? What? The file for this one, 22 Conservation Drive? Just because I cannot see the screen at all. There's a big light going.
Very far away from it too.
Super far, especially for a blind
I see the
person.
file here.
What?
These are supposed to be signed.
Oh, okay.
Have you tried the red folder?
No, that's his folder.
Oh, apologies.
Steve, do we have a file for this one?
I thought his folder was the blue folder.
For 22 Conservation.
There we go.
He might be bringing it. Okay, if we could zoom into the jurisdictional area, that would be great.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is 22 Conservation Drive. It's a 4.1 acre parcel. There's 2 lots left in the subdivision of Conservation Drive. This one and the one across the street, which we believe is unbuildable. So technically, this is the last lot on Conservation Drive subdivision.
Talking about earlier.
We do have a river, which I learned tonight by paying attention that it's the Whitney Reservoir.
Yes, perfect.
It's the one that feeds the previous 31 lot subdivision. So this has a stream crossing for Conservation Drive, which goes from our property, the Lucas property, underneath the road to the east. Associated with that is a wetland, and so we've got wetland buffer zone, and we've got riverfront area. This particular piece of property was permitted in 2006. It has no open order of conditions. It was extended all the way through to 2016, and for some reason it was never constructed or started. So we, talking with Steve, we have to ask for a certificate of compliance to close out that previous order. This plan almost identically mimics the previous plan that was approved. We've got a septic system up in the northern quadrant of the property. Basically, all the development is pushed up into the northeast corner of the property based on the finger of wetlands that come out that are associated with the riverfront. The whole riverfront area on this parcel is 154,000.
This is the old house.
And we're staying out of the 100-foot riverfront area, and we're staying out of the 50-foot buffer zone area. So the 10% disturbance based on the Riverfront Act is around 15,500, and we are proposing pretty dang close to that 15,426 square feet of disturbance. And some of that is to construct the well and provide the water line going to the dwelling itself. So some of that will be going back in. But we were pushing the envelope on the amount of disturbance that is allowed within that area, provided that we meet all the performance standards based on the Wetlands Protection Act. We've kept the septic on the high side. We've separated it by the driveway and the house, and then we've got grading to come down from the driveway, which touches the 100-foot riverfront area. So we've stayed quite a distance away from the resource areas themselves, and we're very cognizant of the buffer zones. Yeah, it does have to go to MISA for it qualifies as a 30-day streamline review. So it's already been sent to Natural Heritage with a filing fee for them. I have not reached out to them yet to find out, what their review process is going to be like. But I was waiting to have this hearing with you guys, and there's a few checkpoints along the way that need to happen before any decisions are made.
What was the triggering factor for MISA review of species?
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole within Reservoir Brook has natural heritage all the way through it, and as with the previous applicant that was before you, that whole river is associated with the habitat. We don't know what it is, but I'm sure we'll find out what they're trying to protect and what species or rare plant or whatever is out there.
Okay.
I got a quick question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Steve.
So I was forwarding an email. I guess, Jude, did you ask the building inspector at one time regarding some other floodplain lines that's associated with the hazardous conditions if the dam breaks?
Yes. So I reached out to, on your GIS website, and it's not found anywhere else on the mass mapper or anything like that, but on your GIS website, there's a line called a dam failure zone. And it encompasses this property, and it encompasses several other properties along the Whidden Reservoir Brook. And I reached out, nobody really knew what that line was and what it signified. I reached out to the Office of Dam Safety and asked them, and their response was, where'd you get that line? That's not supposed to be on a public mapping system. It's not intended to eliminate land use. It's just a warning. If you have a dam and you're a dam owner, you have to provide, it's an emergency action plan. So you have to delineate the limits of if that dam broke in sudden failure, where that water would go. So it's not technically called, it's not a floodway, it's not a floodplain, it's just simply a line that's shown on an emergency action plan. It has no regulations associated with it. It's just it's a line to make somebody aware that if the dam fails in sudden failure, that there could be potential flooding along the river.
Okay.
And your next question is going to be if I can provide documentation, and I can. I just haven't done.
Steve, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was a commission's issue or if it was the building inspector's issue.
I've done emergency action plans before, and it's never got put onto a mass GIS. What they think happened is someone in town, because everybody has to be notified of this, someone in town saw the report, saw the line, and put it on to the Douglas website.
Yeah, the layer, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it created a few head-scratching moments for me, because I've never seen that line before, so I reached out to, like Steve said, I reached out to Steve, and I reached out to the building inspector, and they didn't really have an idea, so I reached out to the Office of Dam Safety, and the guy was really helpful and said anything I need to explain it to Conservation Commission, and Steve would be happy to.
Okay. So I'd like to look at, you provided an alternatives analysis report, right?
Yeah.
So we have our zoning line that you are not close to. So as far as reconfiguring, did you explore reconfiguring from the initially approved plan to this plan? Moving the house outside of the 100-foot, rearranging a few little things, reconfiguring, regrading, limiting that grading. Did you look at that at all?
Yes, I did. I looked at, before the other house with a drive under garage. We were coming in with a front-loaded garage in the front, with a little bit of the garage slab is slightly lower than the first floor. Basically, the septic system has to go up in that corner, and the grading for that and breakout kind of drive everything else in order to get the septic system to flow gravity without any use of any pumps or anything like that. This was the best layout that I could foresee utilizing. What we did in the past is when this lot was first, in 2000, when it was first configured, there wasn't enough riverfront area to even do 10% disturbance. So one of the alternatives that was done back then for the 2006 permit was they went and bought adjacent land that wasn't being used for anyone else, so that we could combine it, make a bigger lot, and have a bigger area of riverfront to then take the 10% and be able to do this project that we're doing. One of the other designs had the septic system, the reserve area down below the driveway. So when I looked at that, we went out and we retested, so we had the proper amount of testing, and showed the reserve system within the primary system, so that we could take all of that potential disturbance down the road if they ever had to upgrade their septic system. We wouldn't be redisturbing riverfront area or wetland buffer zones.
Right, so did you take a look at moving the house forward towards the street, towards that 50-foot setback? To reduce the grading and reduce I mean, you're pretty close to the 50. You're on the 50, or a little bit over the 50 with the grading. So did you take?
If I pull the house forward, it starts to become I can pull it slightly forward, but if I pull it forward too much, the problem becomes the separation distance between the septic system and the house itself, because the septic's up on a big mound, and the more I bring it forward, the closer to the breakout grades.
Yeah, it's 20 feet, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at any alternatives to decrease the impacts. Okay.
I could certainly look into that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Board, any questions? Yes?
We're talking about an open order of conditions from years ago. Do we have to close something?
Yeah, if it's not been closed out, is there still an order on the registry?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so if you could put the request, if you could put the request in writing, we'll just say no work has been started, no work commenced on that, so we can tidy that up and see if we can get that ready for you. Good catch. Mike? Mark?
What's the slope coming off the house towards the 50-foot wetland buffer?
It's 3 to 1. Right here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And how
it's
many
3 to
feet
1.
is that? Are those 2-foot contours?
Yes.
So you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 feet of elevation change right there. And is there anything at the bottom of that slope to attenuate the runoff?
The new plan has a lot more grading. The old plan went out to
No, there is
limit of
not.
work, which was shorter than 50. The old plan.
It's lit up.
Is there
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
proposed along that side to keep the work, not keep the work, but keep the permanent disturbance from moving towards the wetlands? Say that, landowner goes out there just wants to start cutting trees or anything. Is there anything that demarcates that line and keeps them from doing that?
No, we could add signs or boulders or whatever the commission wants to add some signage that makes them aware that they should not be putting stuff over that line and creeping their yard.
Yeah, we're open to the applicant's suggestion on that,
like
but there's got to be something.
Yeah, and I'd like to know how you're planning to plant that slope or to, what you're going to use for plant material on that slope, whether it's a maintained slope or not. And like I said, I think at the base of that slope, I think there maybe should be something to take the velocity off of the water as it gets to the bottom before it runs away.
We could certainly look at putting some sort of a stone diaphragm at the bottom of the slope to capture the water and spread it back out. I can show you a seed mix too. We can plant that slope with a highway slope seed mix. I can show you a specification for that, and we can call that out on that 3 to 1 slope. It's more of a hardy grass. It's not, the Kentucky bluegrass that manicured lawn. It's more of a rougher grass, more hardy grass that can stabilize the slope.
Would you consider not doing grass, but doing another vegetation other than grass?
Something that involves some shrub.
And no mowing.
Yeah.
Getting
on the
back
slope.
to the
Like on dams, they
naturally
use a
vegetated.
crown veg, which is
better.
something to consider, or I would anyway.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm always leaning towards native species, but if there's something that's both native and does a very good job of maintaining slope retention, I have a love of milkweed, but I know it doesn't retain slopes, so.
We could certainly look into a slope.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and then the only thing I was going to call out is looking at the two plans, the old one and the new one side by side. There's a lot more grading in the new plan than there was in the old plan, and I just kind of wanted you to be cognizant that we're noticing that you went from having a little bit of space between yourself and the 50-foot buffer to being a bit closer, and actually the lines,
They're a little different.
the lines look different. Yeah, no, the way that the 50-foot buffer intersects the riparian zone 100-foot buffer, it looks like that intersection point is happening elsewhere, where there used to be.
The same scale?
Well, I'm not looking at them at the same scale, but.
Look at, the bottom corner. 1 equals 30, 1 equals 1.
We recently had this riverfront redelineated and the wetlands redelineated, so we picked up more detail around from wetland flag, say 4 up to wetland flag 10. So it creates a dip in the river there where it was shown as a straight shot on that previous plan. So that's where the jurisdictional lines that are intersecting each other match up 100%.
Okay. Yeah, because
if you go out there, you can clear. I don't know where the other flagging came from. It just was kind of seems like they connected the straight line. But if you go out there, you can see that bank. It's very, very defined bank. those flags,
It just
current
this
flags.
looks like
definitely
a
follow
90
more
degree,
closely.
and then this one's.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at that grading, less of a grading, and maybe you go back into the lot or something, move that tank a little bit. Just that slope is steep, so. Okay. Anyone in the audience have questions or concerns regarding this hearing 22 Conservation Drive? The miss with the hand raised cannot see your name, but if you could have your name and address, please.
Leah Latimer.
Miss Latimer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, okay. My name is Leah Latimer. I live at 18 Conservation Drive, so I'm right next to that lot. I have a couple of concerns. As you know, several of my neighbors, we've all kind of been talking about this, and, you know, from the get-go with the 110 acres, which is also, you know, connected to our whole neighborhood. But this is all land that is owned by Eveningside Realty, and Eveningside Realty is the first, that's the landowner that started the whole development. So when everything went downhill in our development and it never got finished, the roads didn't get finished, there's no berms on the second phase, there's tons of drainage issues on our side of the road. We actually get a bit of an ice dam on this side. There's definitely some deterioration on the bridge. You know, the town did eventually step in and take over the road, but we still didn't get sidewalks or berms or anything else. And that's fine. At that point, I mean, it's really not, but at that point, the Conservation Commission was just beside itself. And this lot, when it was proposed, they did all kinds of studies on it. And they had denied them the right to build on it. They had, I have a binder full of notes from everything that took place, but a man named Glenn Krabowski from the EPA found like shrimp, these berry shrimp. The Conservation Commission people were awesome, and they just kind of went in there. They found spotted salamander eggs and spotted turtles, and they also wound up taking Eveningside Realty to court. And that court case lasted from 2001 to 2007, when it looks like Eveningside Realty never submitted what they needed to submit, so it was dismissed. It's just really strange to me that with this full 110 acres, there's now going to be this attempt to squeeze that last lot, which is, you know, if this was all approved after the Rivers Act was in place, and it's all going to be within 200 feet of the river or the stream that runs through this. And I'm just not sure why all of a sudden we're sort of throwing our hands up and saying, you know, nothing that happened in the past really matters, and we're just going to let this go. I don't know. The Conservation Commission in Douglas did take this to court, and there are 2 court cases on the records about this. Of course, it's not super detailed what
Lot 11R.
So we're just frustrated. It's like the 110 acres is one thing, and then now they're going to come in and rip up the roads and rip up this land that conservation fought so hard to keep pristine. And I'm just confused about why all of a sudden nobody's concerned.
Thank you. Previously, I heard that there was an order of conditions that was issued for this specific lot. Am I confused? Because then there was another piece of property purchased adjacent to the lot to make.
They still said, I know they still said no. If you look at the court case was, I know it was the Mazinskis. I can remember everybody was on the board, the Conservation Commission at the time, and they were going to court because the same people who owned the land, who really were part of it, Eveningside really was really behind the whole building thing, and they kind of walked away when everything went wrong and blamed it on the builder. And now they're going to walk back in and build another house when they left the town basically holding the bag when the bond wasn't enough to finish the road, and it still isn't finished. So it's the same builder. I don't know how that works, but it's, like, I know it was mentioned in the past, like, oh, this happened 20 years ago, but 10 of us, half of the houses are still occupied by people who bought it then, and it's not like it's something that was done or over, you know what I mean? It's never.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and we will have to check into this.
I can give you court case numbers, I have a file.
You're saying court, but I don't know, did you go to DEP? I'm looking for,
It was back when we had the adjudicated hearing.
Yeah.
It was just, it was never settled on. There was a house proposed on either side of the road, on the right side and left side. I think what ended up happening here on this side of the road is that the riverfront, they combined, there was a lot, open lot before you cross the stream and then after the stream. And they ended up combining both of those, making one large lot in order to get the riverfront area down. And at the time, I think the original order of conditions was approved probably 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago.
yeah, I've got it filed September 9th, 2005. NOI number 143-0703, that was lot 11R. And it says single-family dwelling, riverfront area and buffer zone. And, what?
They ended up combining 11R, I think, with 13 and making one big lot, and so...
And then there was an order of conditions issued, so maybe they changed the numbers?
I would just encourage you to like really look into this lot because it's like they have twisted and drained every single possible penny they could get, and they really left the town holding, I'm not talking about the person who's online right now, but holding the bag, and it's like to let them come in now and like just really violate that land after everything, including the not donated 110 acres. It's crazy to us. We're just cannot imagine.
If there is something that we can do, we will do it. We'll look into it.
I have one more question. I remember them speaking about the amount of land and the 10%, but is there something about a percentage for the whole project versus each lot individually?
That percentage changes after 1996.
Well, this
was
whole thing is
supposed to be.
This was after 1996. This was 1998. But somebody on conservation actually brought it up that even if they had done that, there's the question of how much wetlands they violated, or not violated, but encroached on in the whole subdivision.
Yeah, segmenting a project, a subdivision.
And that they were far over it because we all have orders. We are all on this river, like we're right on it.
Yeah.
And none of us have cut down trees. We've all been super respectful and followed our orders and conditions, but this just seems like just one more, a complete violation of,
Yeah.
And wear and tear on the road again by the same people who left the town holding the bag because it's the same people.
Okay. Yeah.
I represent, just for the record, I represent a private developer who's purchasing this land from these people that you're speaking of. So I just want that to be clear that it's.
No, it's clear.
Yeah.
But it's still using credibility.
Yeah,
we mean. You're mentioning are very helpful and are new information to me. I didn't.
Yeah, it's been a twisted road.
So we may need a donation. I don't.
Yeah.
I do recall when the road was washing out, because I was on the board at that time about 15 years ago. So I do know what kind of condition the kids couldn't skateboard and everything was like destroyed and the town had to step in and take care of it. So if there are legal ramifications, we could certainly, they are the owner of record, they are opening the can of worms for themselves.
It is a public way now. The town took over the...
Right, but there must be something in the records of unpaid or uncollected monies. But we have to really look into this, Steve, to see if there's any...
I was there when we went to court all those years. And so that's why when this came up, That's how they got the original order of conditions, because they lost a lot. And I think, I have to look through the records, it's been a long time, but Mary Lynn and myself, we had the judiciary hearing judges at the time, those were disbanded years ago. And it just kind of went dormant. There was some ruling that was done, and it was never followed up upon, so it was just the applicant just left it dormant. And I'd have to go through the files to see why the commission approved it years ago.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go through the file, and DEP, I'm sure, will take a hard look at it if they've seen.
Please, thank you.
No problem. Okay, anyone else in the public? What is that chat, Mark? Is there a chat down below there? Oh, was that just a person?
It's not.
Oh, it was just
Nope, it's 10 people, no chat items.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're good.
Okay, board, any other follow-up questions?
How far do we
Boy, if
want
there's
to?
land to be donated, this should be it.
Right, well, and then there's another lot that they're saying it's not buildable, but yeah, I'm just looking, and it's, so one of the things that was brought up, or we didn't bring it up, but the letter you showed me, and then I checked that email, references that this is, a not insignificant tributary to the Mumford, which is part of the Blackstone Valley Watershed Association. There's a series of goals having to do with reducing the amount of impervious area and increasing, and then reduction of like foliage cover over the watershed as a whole to mitigate temperature concerns, in part driven by development, but in part driven by climate change issues. So this property would definitely fall under, properties that the watershed as a whole would like to avoid having any foliage removal within the riverfront area.
The applicant's going to need to overcome that bar, the riverfront area, requirements, the alternatives analysis, and which we didn't see yet, but
There's going to be a lot
I
of
think,
hurdles here. Do we want to have this one for the next meeting? If there's going to be research and stuff.
Well, the next meeting looks busy. I would almost rather look at this in May.
do we want to have Art Allen review this?
Yeah.
Steve? Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
Do you think we should get Art Allen involved?
If you want to have them look at the site, look at the delineation. Is it stamped by a surveyor too, Jude?
No.
You probably would want a surveyor to stamp the plans too, just because it's riverfront area, and it's all based on calculations of non-riverfront disturbance per the survey file. But yeah, I can get a proposal from Art.
Would the applicant be amenable to having a peer review done for this lot?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I would just want to get the ball rolling. Maybe we can make a vote if the applicant agrees that we engage, Art Allen, no more than a certain amount of money for peer review, so that we can have that for our next meeting.
I could certainly talk to the client about it. Seeing as how this already had an order of conditions that ran for 10 years, it seems like we're kind of, I'm not sure what we would gain by having Alan look at this after it's already been approved once it lapsed. It just seems like this guy was trying to buy this property from the people who did something that I'm gathering wasn't on the up and up. Now this guy's gonna get stuck going through a process that doesn't seem worth it.
Probably should have bought it before the process.
Right.
So that's fine. I said probably should have bought it before the process then.
Well, I mean, but by the same token, we're protecting the buyer. If this ends up being unbuildable, I think you'd rather know that now.
Yeah.
right?
Why would it become unbuildable if it just had an order of conditions, it's got an open order of conditions on it now?
Because that order of conditions was from 2005.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Okay.
That's 17 years ago. That doesn't mean that this board will approve it the same way.
Correct.
Yeah, you're saying it's open, are you saying it's valid?
No, it's open, it's not valid. It's expired, but it's still open.
Oh, okay. Okay, well
It
then,
just seems to me that if this was approvable, the regulations haven't changed, so if this was approvable under the regulations from 2006, it should be approvable under the regulations of 2022. And adding all these things, I heard a donation, I heard a review. I mean, I don't know.
okay, so we'll just wait, you want to be continued to April 25th?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
April 25th, 7 PM. All those in favor, second?
Second.
Second by Mike.
Eric Harris, aye.
Mark Bumpany, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Mark Bunchmeyer.
KG Dudley, aye.
Okay, we'll see you on the 25th.
May 16th.
And I hope that DEP
No.
will have their comments for us by that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to shake out before that next meeting, so
Okay.
we'll see.
Yeah, 3
Can I
weeks.
can I just ask one more question? As far as the record showed, it looks like Eveningside really still owns that lot.
Okay.
So would
That's
it-
correct.
I'm sorry, sorry, miss, I've already continued the hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you have a question, you can email Steve or call Steve, and we can get your question to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Do we want to do minutes, or you want to hold them? We just saw
I
these.
gotta run.
I want to go home.
Okay.
Okay.
Go.
Steve, anything?
You can sign all those orders now or come in and I can leave them on.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn,
Motion made by Art,
9:58.
second by Mike. All those in
Second.
favor?
Eric Harris, aye.
Mark Bumpany, aye.
Mike?
Mark Bunchmeyer.
KG Dudley, aye.
Mike Greco, aye.
Okay, thank you very much.